I discovered that my husband of several decades had been having an affair. The other woman was just 20 years old, much younger than me. When I confronted my husband, he coldly said, "Divorce me for her. You can have custody of the kids." My world shattered, leaving me speechless. To make matters worse, he had gotten his mistress pregnant. I told our daughters about the situation. Embracing their suggestion, I decided to take drastic measures. "Just you wait, I'll get you back soon," I vowed silently. My name is Natalie Johnson, 47 years old. I married John, who was the same age when I was 25. In the blink of an eye, 20 years had passed. We have 3 daughters, the oldest in college, the second and third in high school. They're not fully independent yet, but they're at an age when they can manage things on their own. Now that the children were more independent, I was able to immerse myself in the work I love. I've been working for a major corporation since before I got married, and I earn more than my husband. Additionally, the house we live in was inherited from my parents, so we have no mortgage payments and live comfortably. With the kids growing up, we had more time as a couple. One night, while we were sharing a beer, my husband grinned and said, "Hey, Natalie, the kids don't need us as much anymore. How about we take a trip? Just the 2 of us, like old times." "Oh, really? When was the last time we went on a trip together? You're always helping out around here, and we both work hard, don't we? A little indulgence won't hurt." "Haha, that's true. The girls are old enough to handle things on their own. Should we leave the housework to them?" "Yeah, that's a great idea. I'll need to arrange some time off work. Where would you like to go?" "It might be nice to relax at a hot spring resort." "A hot spring resort sounds great." He began planning the trip with a delighted expression, and I couldn't help but smile at his boyish enthusiasm. Whenever I had a free moment during work or my commute, I found myself checking out travel websites. We gradually narrowed down our destination, and I'd already filled in our daughters about our plans. I was thrilled that he suggested the trip. Fast forward 1 month after our vacation discussions. I was waiting for my husband to get home so we could finalize our travel schedule. Usually, he's home by the time I return from work, but that day was different. When I got home, he was nowhere to be found, and our daughters couldn't provide any clues. His late returns were always preceded by a call, so his absence made me uneasy. If he didn't come by the next day, I decided I would call him. As I was considering my options, he finally arrived home just after 11 p.m. "Welcome home. I was worried since you were late," I said, rushing over to him, but his face was somber. "What happened? Is everything okay at work?" I asked, concern growing. He opened his mouth slowly. "Natalie, we need to talk." "Talk? About what? You look so serious." "I have been having an affair." "What?" I said, "I've been cheating on you with another woman." I was too shocked to speak properly. "Cheating? My husband?" In my confusion, I managed to stammer out a response. "What are you saying? An affair? You wouldn't." "But I have. It's been going on for a year." "A year? That's a joke, right? You showed no signs." "I tried my best to keep it from you. Meeting her after work when you were working late, telling you I was working on weekends when I went out." "No, that's a lie. You wouldn't." My husband grabbed both my shoulders, looking straight into my eyes. "I'm really sorry, but there's no turning back now." "What do you mean, no turning back? Stop kidding around. We've been together for 20 years, haven't we? Anyway, that's the situation. I want a divorce for her." "A divorce for her? What the heck is going on? We were just talking about going on a trip together, weren't we?" "I'm really sorry." I couldn't comprehend what he was saying. Has my husband been replaced by someone else? Tearfully, I confronted him and he began to explain the situation. According to his story, the woman he was cheating with was a junior at the same company, barely 20 years old and a temporary employee. She had started working there about a year ago, and he became her mentor. Their professional relationship evolved into after-work tutoring sessions and coffee breaks together. Eventually, they started going out for dinners and a romantic relationship developed. "She's so innocent, cute, and she depends on me." "You must be joking, and she's 27 years younger." He spoke of her charm, leaving me feeling inadequate. Then he dropped a bombshell. "Remember I mentioned wanting a divorce for her sake? Truth is, she's pregnant." "What? Pregnant?" "Yeah, so I think I should take responsibility and marry her. Thankfully, our girls are becoming more independent." "Hold on a minute. That doesn't matter, right? Those girls are our daughters, you know." Don't worry, I'll give you custody. What? As we're having this crucial conversation, my husband's eyes gleam with a calm smile. Does he really think that offering custody will make everything okay? I felt like he was mocking me, and the sadness I'd been feeling began to morph into anger. Before I knew it, I was shouting louder than I ever had before. Don't be ridiculous. This is too much. There's no point in saying that, right? The life that's about to be born means everything to me now. Then why did you suggest we go on a trip as a couple? I was really looking forward to that. I didn't know she was pregnant at the time. So if she hadn't gotten pregnant, you would have continued cheating on me in secret. Is that it? Well, anyway, I'm bringing her over tomorrow. Let's discuss everything then. He quickly changed the subject, handing me already filled out divorce papers before rushing to the bathroom. What on earth is happening? He drops the bombshell of an affair out of nowhere, then mentions she's pregnant. How much more can he humiliate me? I had prepared dinner for him, waited anxiously, and now I felt utterly foolish. Chaotic emotions swirled within me, but no matter how furious I became, the situation remained unchanged. I decided to confront my husband's affair head-on. The next day, as he had promised, he brought his mistress over. I instructed our daughters to stay in their rooms and had my husband and his mistress, who introduced herself as Lisa, sit on the couch. I am truly sorry for all of this, Lisa said, bowing her head as she sat down. Your apology doesn't change anything. My husband and I have 3 daughters, I replied firmly. I understand that, but for the sake of our child in my womb, could you please divorce John? Lisa requested calmly. What? Why should I destroy my family for your child's sake? I couldn't believe her audacity. Anger surged through me, and I raised my voice. This is absurd. Lisa looked shocked, covering her mouth with her hand. My husband turned to her with concern. Hey Lisa, are you okay? I'm sorry, John. I'm feeling a bit, must be morning sickness, Lisa said, her voice wavering. Right. What do you need? Should I show you to the bathroom? John asked, concern in his voice. Thank you. Could you show me the way? Of course, come this way, John replied, displaying a level of gentlemanliness I hadn't seen in him before. He helped Lisa to the bathroom, looking uncertain. When she returned, John said gently, Lisa, take it easy, okay? Our precious little baby is inside you. Yeah, sorry. Natalie's outburst caught me off guard. Lisa responded. I'm sorry too. If she had agreed to divorce right away, we wouldn't be in this mess. No, it's okay. This is a challenge we have to face together, Lisa said with a smile, and they held hands, creating a scene reminiscent of a movie. In that moment, my feelings toward my husband hardened abruptly. If only you had agreed to an honest divorce. What? You think this is my fault? You're the one who cheated on me in the first place. If that's how it is, I'll agree to the divorce or whatever, I said, deciding to end the futile discussion. Shortly after, I escorted my husband and his unfaithful partner out of the house and locked the door behind them. My daughters emerged from their rooms, clearly having overheard our conversation. Mom, is what we heard true? My eldest daughter asked, her voice filled with concern. I nodded silently, unable to conceal the truth any longer. I called them into the living room to discuss their father's affair. So we're getting a divorce. I want each of you to decide who you want to live with from now on. In unison, my daughters responded, well, obviously we're staying with Mom, right? But it's not fair if Dad doesn't face any consequences. Exactly. Let's teach him and his new friend a lesson. Immediately, my daughters proposed a plan. They're quite clever. Their suggestion surprised me, but I agreed and decided to play along. A few days later, I called my husband and told him I needed to discuss alimony. When he came over, I got straight to the point. I'll be seeking a fair alimony arrangement after the divorce. As for custody, you can have it. As I spoke, my husband rolled his eyes. Huh? Then our daughters appeared. His expression shifted to one of dismay as he saw them. Hey, wouldn't you rather stay with your mom? He asked tentatively. Huh? Why? We're obviously staying with you, Dad, they replied in unison. Who we choose is our business, and Dad has a more stable income, right? Wait, Natalie. I mean, your mom earns more in this household, their father interjected desperately. It's fine, Dad. As long as we get our usual allowance, we're good, right? As long as us 3 stick together, the daughters reassured him, brushing off his attempts to persuade them. Exactly. Actually, Dad, you should feel honored we're choosing you. Well, He seemed bewildered. But he had no choice but to accept his children's decision. He had always been a soft touch when it came to his daughters. My husband reluctantly agreed to take custody of the children. Since he was the reason for the divorce, I wouldn't be paying any child support. We settled on divorce proceedings that focus on receiving alimony from him and his mistress. The next day, we filed our divorce papers at City Hall. The alimony amounted to $30,000 from my husband and $15,000 from his mistress, paid in full at once. Our daughters stayed with me on weekends and lived with their father and his mistress during the week in a small apartment where she had previously resided. It was cramped living for 5 people, but that discomfort was part of the plan. Just wait and see. I was determined to ensure they regretted betraying me and our daughters. 2 months later, just when I thought the time might be right, my ex-husband and Lisa barged into my house. What's wrong with them? Dealing with those spoiled brats is impossible. I lost my temper as they stood there, faces red and breathing heavily, complaining in unison. I responded calmly, please don't be rude. All 3 of them are my pride and joy. They're good kids. Don't give me that. What makes them good kids? All they do is complain about wanting expensive meals or not getting enough allowance every single day. Exactly. And why are we responsible for their tuition and textbooks? No one told us about that. Well, isn't that expected? After all, you 2 are their parents. Our home is too small. A family of 5 in a 1-bedroom apartment is unheard of. Yes, that apartment was originally rented for just me. The neighbors on both sides keep complaining, and even the landlord is insisting that we move out. Well, that's your own doing. And if the girls want Dad to have custody, there's nothing you can do about it. Both of them fell silent, their expressions bitter. After a long pause, John lowered his head and spoke softly. Please take them. Ha! What did you say? I said take them. We're expecting a baby. If we keep giving in to the girls' demands, we won't be able to properly raise our child. Ha! Raising them is also part of being a parent, you know. Stop complaining. When did you become so heartless? You don't understand how others feel. You're the worst. His face flushed with anger as he shouted. I sighed heavily and responded sharply. Don't understand others' feelings. You're calling me the worst? Are you talking about yourself? Who cheated, had a child with another woman, and asked me to divorce you for her? Who betrayed me first and did the worst thing? Do you remember that? That's all in the past. Don't bring it up again, he retorted, seemingly unaware of his own selfishness. Now, he was blaming me along with his mistress. I didn't hold back. Enough is enough. It's in the past. Don't try to neatly close the book on your own. Do you have any idea how the girls and I felt? We were devastated when you betrayed us. Despite that, you continue to be selfish. But I already apologized for the affair, didn't I? Please just take them in, John pleaded. Fine, I will. I pity the girls for having to stay with someone like you. But in exchange, you must pay child support. Understood? You have a responsibility as their father till they grow up and become independent adults. But on my salary alone, I can't possibly. Enough. Don't play the victim now. You should have thought about that before you got your mistress pregnant. Now leave and never show your face to me again. His face went pale and he slumped where he stood. After hanging his head for a moment, he whispered to Lisa, Let's go home. At that moment, Lisa, who had been silent until then, slapped his cheek hard. Don't mess with me. I ended up in debt even after paying alimony, and now you're talking about child support. This is ridiculous. What are you saying? What's going on, Lisa? What do you mean by lie? Weren't we planning to raise our child together? There is no child. Time froze as his mistress dropped the bombshell. He started questioning her in disbelief. No. No child? Was the pregnancy a lie? I thought you were wealthy, so I wanted to marry you. What? What are you saying, Lisa? Is that true? The house you boasted about belonged to your wife all along, didn't it? I can't get a house, I'm paying alimony, and now I'm forced to take care of those stupid girls. I've had enough. There's nothing good about being married to you. Divorce me immediately. I can't believe this. My ex-husband clung to Lisa, tears in his eyes. Get out of my way. Move. I'm leaving. She pushed him aside and stormed out of the house. My ex-husband, abandoned by his mistress, immediately fell to his knees and begged me. Please forgive me. Give me another chance. No matter how many times he begged, I firmly turned him away. I promptly drove him out of the house and called our daughters back. From that moment, I officially regained custody of our daughters and demanded child support from my ex-husband. Supporting 3 children must have been a heavy burden for him, having depleted his savings with alimony payments. Moreover, their workplace witnessed the confrontation between him and Lisa, spreading the news about their relationship rapidly. Lisa's contract was terminated, and my ex-husband was demoted to a less significant department. His salary was reduced, and facing an even tougher financial situation, he seemed to struggle to make ends meet each month. Reportedly, he can't even afford proper meals now and appears to have become quite bitter. When I shared the story with our daughters, they high-fived each other with wide smiles. Their plan had worked brilliantly, and the 4 of us celebrated together. From this point forward, our life as a family of 4 women began. Despite the absence of their father, I am committed to taking full responsibility as a parent and raising my daughters to become upstanding adults.
The moment I realized my sister had stolen my winning lottery ticket, I was sitting on my worn-out couch, scrolling through Instagram. There she was, Bianca, draped in designer clothes, holding up my ticket with the caption, "Sometimes good things happen to good people. Blessed Utker lottery winner." My name is Tiffany, and until yesterday, I was just another overworked accountant trying to make ends meet. Now, I'm watching my sister steal my future right before my eyes. "Oh my God," I whispered, my phone slipping from my trembling hands. The memories of yesterday flooded back, checking the numbers 3 times, screaming with joy in my tiny apartment, carefully placing the ticket in my purse. The same purse Bianca had accidentally spilled her coffee on during our weekly family dinner. My phone buzzed. A message from my best friend Destiny. "Girl, did you see Bianca's post? Since when does she play the lottery?" I couldn't even type a response. The comments were pouring in under Bianca's post. "OMG Queen, you deserve this. Living your best life. So happy for you, B." The doorbell rang, making me jump. Through the peephole, I saw my mother's perfectly coiffed hair. "Tiffany, open up. We need to celebrate your sister's amazing news." She practically sang the words. I opened the door, my stomach in knots. "Mom, that ticket?" "I know. Isn't it wonderful?" She breezed past me, her expensive perfume filling my small living room. "Bianca just called me. $20 million, can you believe it? Finally, someone in this family is going to make something of themselves." The casual cruelty of her words hit like a slap. "Mom, that ticket is mine. I bought it. I won." She froze, then laughed. "Oh, honey, don't be ridiculous. Bianca showed me the security footage from the store where she bought it." "What? That's impossible." My phone buzzed again. This time it was Bianca. "Thanks for the coffee spill distraction yesterday, sis. Karma's finally paying me back for all those years I had to look out for you." "Look at that. She's even thanking you." Mom peered at my phone. Such a thoughtful girl. I felt sick. "Get out." "Excuse me?" "Get out." My voice was shaking. "Both of you have been gaslighting me my entire life, and I'm done." Mom's face hardened. "This jealousy isn't attractive, Tiffany. I raised you better than this." "No, you raised Bianca better than this. You just tolerated me." The sharp intake of breath told me I'd hit a nerve. Mom gathered her designer purse and headed for the door. "When you're ready to apologize and celebrate your sister's good fortune properly, you know where to find us." The door clicked shut behind her. I sank to the floor, my mind racing. Bianca had always been manipulative. But this was next level. She must have followed me yesterday, seen me buy the ticket. The coffee spill wasn't an accident, it was calculated, just like everything else she did. My phone rang. Jonathan, my old friend from law school who'd stuck around even after I dropped out to support our family. "Tiff, I just saw Bianca's post. Please tell me this isn't what I think it is." "She stole my ticket, John. She actually stole my winning lottery ticket." There was a long pause. "Do you have any proof of purchase?" "No, I paid cash. I always do for lottery tickets. It's my stupid superstition." "Security footage?" "Bianca's apparently handled that already. God knows how." Another pause. "Come to my office. Now." "Why? There's nothing..." Because I know you, Tiff. You're smarter than her. Always have been. And right now, you need to start thinking like a lawyer, not a victim. Something in his tone made me sit up straighter. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that your sister just made a very public mistake. She's going to flaunt this money, document everything on social media, create a paper trail. And you're going to let her. I wiped my eyes. A plan already forming. You want me to give her enough rope to hang herself? Exactly. Get over here. We're going to make sure karma hits your sister so hard she'll think she won the unlucky lottery. For the first time since seeing that Instagram post, I smiled. Bianca might have won this round, but she'd forgotten one crucial detail about me. I always played the long game. I grabbed my keys and headed out. It was time to show my sister that some people are smart enough to get revenge served at exactly the right temperature. Jonathan's office was a stark contrast to my apartment, all gleaming glass and polished wood. He was already pulling up social media feeds when I walked in. Your sister's been busy, he said, turning his monitor toward me. 3 Instagram posts, 2 TikToks, and a Facebook Live video, all in the last 2 hours. I dropped into the leather chair across from his desk. She's always been an attention seeker. No, she's being sloppy. Jonathan leaned forward. Look at this caption. Sometimes the universe puts opportunities right in front of you and you just have to grab them. Subtle, I muttered. Exactly. She's practically confessing. He started typing. First things first. We need to document everything. Every post, every comment, every interaction. My phone buzzed. Dad this time. Hey, sweetheart. His voice was gentle but weak, just like always. Your mother told me about your reaction to Bianca's news. Dad, she stole... Now, Tiffany, let's not throw around accusations. You know your sister's always been lucky. I gripped the phone tighter. Lucky? Is that what we're calling theft now? Your mother and I raised you both to support each other. Bianca's always looked out for you. By stealing my college fund? By sabotaging my job interviews? By stealing my lottery ticket? Jonathan caught my eye and shook his head, mouthing, "Don't tip her off." I took a deep breath. You know what, Dad? You're right. I'm just surprised. Tell Bianca I'm happy for her. The relief in his voice was palpable. That's my girl. We're having a celebration dinner tonight. You'll come? Wouldn't miss it. I hung up and looked at Jonathan. Please tell me you have a plan. He smiled. Better. I have 3 plans. But first you need to convince everyone you've accepted this. Play nice? That's your big strategy? No, my strategy is to let Bianca think she's won. People get careless when they're winning. He pulled up another window. She's hired a social media manager named Skylar, fresh out of college, eager to prove herself. And you're going to become Skylar's new best friend. The celebration dinner was exactly what I expected, Bianca holding court while our parents beamed. I played my part perfectly, smiling and nodding as she detailed her plans for the money. I'm thinking a mansion in Beverly Hills, she gushed, with a pool shaped like a bee. That's amazing, I said, forcing enthusiasm into my voice. You should document everything on social media. Your followers would love that. Bianca's eyes lit up. They would, wouldn't they? Skylar, make a note. The young woman beside her nodded, fingers flying over her phone. I caught her eye and smiled warmly. You must be so busy managing all this, I said. Want to grab a coffee sometime? I'd love to hear about your work. Really? Skylar looked surprised and pleased. That would be great. Tiffany's great with numbers, Bianca interrupted, a hint of warning in her voice. Maybe she could help you manage my accounts. I kept my face neutral. Only if you need it, of course. Actually, Skylar brightened, I could use help with the budget tracking. Would you mind? Of course not. Anything for my sister. Mom beamed. See, Bianca? I told you Tiffany would come around. Later that night, back at Jonathan's office, I recounted the dinner. Perfect, he said. Skylar's your way in. But we need more than just access to her accounts. We need proof you bought that ticket. I told you I paid cash. Yes, but you checked the numbers online, right? From your phone or computer? I sat up straighter. My laptop. I was at home. Which means there's a digital timestamp of you checking those exact numbers. He started typing again. We're going to build this case piece by piece. Browser history, security footage from nearby stores showing you in the area, witness statements from the bodega owner. Will that be enough? Combined with Bianca's social media trail and the inevitable paper trail she'll leave spending the money, it'll be more than enough. He paused. But you have to be patient. Let her dig herself deeper. I nodded, thinking of Bianca's smug face at dinner. I can be patient. I've been dealing with her manipulation my whole life. What's a few more months? Good. Jonathan handed me a legal pad. Now, let's go through every interaction you've had with her in the past week. Every detail matters. As I began recounting the events, a strange calm settled over me. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just reacting to Bianca's schemes, I was going to beat her at her own game. And thanks to her social media addiction, she was going to help me do it. I can't believe she bought another Birkin bag. Skylar sighed, sliding into the coffee shop booth across from me. That's the third one this week. Over the past month, I'd become Skylar's unofficial therapist. Today's session was taking place at our usual spot, away from Bianca's usual haunts. How much has she spent so far? I asked, stirring my latte. Almost $2 million. Skylar lowered her voice. And that's just on shopping. The parties are getting crazy. Last night she had a champagne fountain installed in her hotel suite. I raised my eyebrows. Hotel suite? She says she's waiting for the perfect mansion. Meanwhile, she's burning through cash like... Skylar trailed off, looking guilty. Sorry, I shouldn't be telling you all this. Hey, I'm just glad she has someone responsible looking after her finances. My phone buzzed. A text from Destiny. You sure about this plan? Feels risky. I ignored it. Destiny had been worried since I'd told her what we were doing, but she hadn't grown up with Bianca. She didn't understand what was at stake. Speaking of finances, Skylar fidgeted with her cup. Something weird happened yesterday. I kept my expression neutral. Oh? Bianca was pretty drunk at this party, and she started talking about the lottery ticket. But her story kept changing. First, she said she bought it at Pete's Convenience on 5th, then it was that place near the park. Maybe she was just confused? Maybe. Skylar bit her lip. But then she said something about how you'd never prove anything without cameras. My heart raced, but I forced a laugh. That's just drunk talk. You know how she gets. Yeah, but... Skylar's phone chimed. Ugh, she wants me to come over. Something about planning a yacht party. Go, I smiled. Text me later? As soon as she left, I called Jonathan. She's starting to slip, I said without preamble. Getting drunk, talking about the ticket. Perfect. Is your phone set up to record? Yes, but... No buts. The next party she throws, you need to be there. The opportunity came sooner than expected. That weekend, Bianca hosted a casual gathering at her hotel penthouse. Casual meaning only 50 people instead of her usual 100. I arrived early, playing the supportive sister role. Need any help setting up? Bianca was already 3 glasses of champagne in. My baby sister, always so helpful. She draped an arm around me. Remember when we were kids and you'd always let me copy your homework? You mean when you'd take it without asking? She laughed, too loud. Same difference, just like this lottery thing, right? The universe knows I deserve nice things more than you do. My phone was recording in my pocket. I kept my voice light. What do you mean? Oh, come on. She rolled her eyes, grabbing another champagne bottle. We both know you'd have wasted that money on something boring like investments. She snorted. At least I know how to live. So you admit it wasn't your ticket? For a second, something sharp flashed in her eyes. Then she laughed again. You're so funny, sis. Always with the jokes. More guests started arriving, and Bianca drank more. And more. By midnight, she was holding court by the window, regaling everyone with stories. And then, she could barely stand straight. Then I saw her checking the numbers, and I thought, why should she get all the luck? I'm the pretty one. Several people laughed nervously. Skylar, standing nearby, looked uncomfortable. Bianca, I said softly, maybe we should get you some water. Don't patronize me. She whirled around, nearly falling. You think I don't know what you're doing? Playing nice, helping Skylar, being the perfect sister? She stumbled closer. But guess what? No one will ever believe you. I made sure of that. The room had gone quiet. My phone was still recording. What did you make sure of? I asked, keeping my voice steady. The cameras. She laughed wildly. Paid that sweet old security guard to lose the footage from that day. Can't prove what you can't see, right? Skylar gasped. Several guests started edging toward the door. I think that's enough partying for tonight, I said loudly. Everyone, thank you for coming. As people filed out, Bianca collapsed onto a sofa, already passing out. Skylar lingered, looking troubled. Tiffany, she started. It's okay, I said. She probably won't even remember this tomorrow. But I would. And more importantly, my phone had recorded every word. Later that night, I sent the audio to Jonathan. His response came immediately. This is exactly what we needed. Time for phase 2. I looked at my sleeping sister, sprawled across the designer sofa she'd bought with my money. Soon, very soon, she'd learn that karma doesn't care how pretty you are. The lottery commission is getting suspicious, Jonathan announced, spreading documents across his desk. 3 different people have called asking about irregularities with the ticket claim. I leaned forward. What kind of irregularities? Apparently, Bianca's story keeps changing. First, she said she bought the ticket at 2 p.m., then 4 p.m., then evening. She can't keep her lies straight. My phone lit up with a notification. Another Instagram post from Bianca, this time showing off her new sports car. Look at the comments. Jonathan pointed. People were starting to ask questions. Weird how you never showed the actual moment you bought the ticket. Didn't you say you bought it on 5th Street last week? Now it's Madison Ave? She's deleting them as fast as she can, I said. But Skylar showed me her admin panel. There are hundreds. Jonathan smiled. Time to add fuel to the fire. Remember that bodega owner I mentioned? The one near my apartment? He remembers you buying tickets every Friday. Same time, same numbers. He signed an affidavit this morning. My hands shook slightly. Will that be enough? Combined with everything else? It's a start, but we need Skylar on our side. As if on cue, my phone rang. Skylar's name flashed on the screen. Tiffany? She sounded panicked. Something's wrong. The lottery commission called again, and Bianca completely lost it. She's threatening to fire me if I don't delete all the questioning comments. Where are you? Outside her hotel. I can't keep doing this. The numbers don't add up, her stories keep changing, and after what she said at the party, meet me at the Blue Cup in 15 minutes. Jonathan raised an eyebrow as I grabbed my coat. Be careful. Always am. Skylar was already at the cafe when I arrived, fidgeting with a napkin. I found something, she blurted before I could sit down. In her phone. What do you mean? She pulled out her tablet. Part of my job is backing up her photos. I found these from the day she claimed the ticket. My heart stopped. There, in crystal clear detail, were photos of Bianca following me into the bodega. Another showed her watching me check the ticket through my apartment window. She was stalking you, Skylar whispered. And there's more. Text messages to some security guard about deleting footage, messages to your mom about keeping you quiet. Skylar, I said carefully, I need to tell you something. I laid it all out. The truth about the ticket, Jonathan's plan, everything. By the end, she was pale but determined. I knew something was wrong, she said. The way she treats you, the inconsistencies. What do you need me to do? Keep documenting everything. And whatever you do, don't let her know you're helping me. Back at Jonathan's office, we reviewed Skylar's evidence. "This is better than we hoped," he said. "But timing is crucial. Too soon and she might find a way to spin it. Too late. And she might spend all my money," I finished. "Exactly. We need one more piece, something public, something she can't deny." My phone buzzed. "Mom, family dinner tonight. Bianca's making a big announcement." I showed Jonathan the text. He grinned. "Perfect. Wear that necklace I gave you." "The one with the hidden microphone?" Bianca's drunk confessions were good, but we need her sober. And nothing makes her slip up like family dinner. That evening, I arrived at my parents' house to find Bianca holding court in the living room. "There she is," Bianca exclaimed. "My favorite sister." "Your only sister," I reminded her with a smile. "Whatever. Guess what? I'm buying Mom and Dad a house." Mom clapped her hands. "Isn't she generous?" "So generous," I agreed. "Just like when we were kids, right, Bianca? Always taking what you wanted?" Her smile flickered. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Just remembering how you used to take my homework, my clothes, my boyfriends." I paused. "My lottery ticket." "Tiffany," Dad warned. But Bianca was already rising to the bait. "You still can't let that go, can you? You're just jealous because I was smart enough to take what I wanted." The room went silent. Mom's fork clattered against her plate. "What did you just say?" Dad asked quietly. Bianca's face went white as she realized what she'd admitted. I didn't." I touched the necklace gently, making sure it was still recording. "No, please, go on. Tell us exactly how smart you were." As Bianca stammered excuses, I caught a glimpse of my mother's face. Shocked, confused, and finally understanding dawning in her eyes. The trap was set. Now all we had to do was spring it. The silence at the dinner table was deafening. Mom's hands trembled as she set down her wine glass. "Bianca, what exactly are you saying?" "Nothing. I'm not saying anything." Bianca's voice had that shrill edge I remembered from childhood, the one that appeared whenever she was caught in a lie. "Tiffany's trying to twist my words." "No one's twisting anything," I said calmly, touching my necklace again. "You just said you were smart enough to take what you wanted." "That's not what I meant." Dad cleared his throat. "Then what did you mean, Princess?" Bianca's mascara was starting to run. "You're all ganging up on me, after everything I've offered to do for this family." "With my money," I added softly. "Prove it." She slammed her hands on the table. "You can't prove anything." My phone buzzed. A text from Skylar. "Check Instagram. Now." I pulled up the app. Someone had posted a video from Bianca's party, the one where she drunkenly bragged about paying off the security guard. The comments were exploding. OMG, did she just admit to stealing the ticket? This is wild. A lottery commission needs to see this. I knew something was off about her story. Bianca's phone must have buzzed too, because her face went from red to ghost white in seconds. "Who?" she whispered, staring at her screen. "Who posted this?" "Posted what?" Mom grabbed her own phone. Her gasp was audible. "Bianca Marie, tell me this isn't true." "It's not. I mean, I was drunk. People say stupid things when they're drunk." "Like the truth?" I suggested. Bianca lunged for her phone, frantically typing. "Skylar, delete this now. Skylar!" "She can't," I said. "It's already been shared thousands of times." "You!" Bianca's eyes narrowed. "You planned this. You and that little social media rat." Dad stood up slowly. "Bianca, did you steal your sister's lottery ticket?" "Daddy, please, answer the question." For the first time in my life, I saw real fear in Bianca's eyes. I deserved it more. Tiffany would have wasted it on stupid things like charity and investments. I know how to make people happy." Mom started crying. "How could you do this?" "How could I?" Bianca laughed hysterically. "The same way I've done everything else. The same way you've let me do everything else. Take Tiffany's college fund? Oh, Bianca needs it more. Ruin her job interviews? Well, she shouldn't compete with her sister. This is what you created. The truth hung in the air like poison gas. My parents looked stunned, as if seeing their golden child clearly for the first time. My phone buzzed again. Jonathan, Lottery Commission wants a meeting. Tomorrow morning. You know what the funny thing is? I stood up, gathering my purse. I would have shared it with you. If you just asked, I would have helped you start your business, buy a house, everything you wanted. But you had to take it all. Where are you going? Mom reached for me. We need to fix this. Fix what? The fact that you enabled her for 30 years? Or the fact that she committed fraud? Fraud? Bianca's voice cracked. What do you mean, fraud? I mean, the Lottery Commission has opened an investigation. They're meeting with my lawyer tomorrow morning. I headed for the door. Oh, and Bianca? You might want to stop spending money that isn't yours. I hear fraud charges get worse when the stolen money's gone. You can't do this to me. She scrambled after me. I'm your sister. I turned back one last time. You're right. You are my sister. And you're about to learn what that should have meant all along. As I walked to my car, I could hear Bianca's screams and Mom's sobs. Dad came running after me. Tiffany, wait. I paused, hand on my car door. I'm sorry, he said quietly. We should have seen it. Should have stopped it. Yes, you should have. What happens now? I looked back at the house where Bianca was having a full meltdown in the doorway. Now? Now she faces consequences. For once in her life. And us? That depends on what you do next. I got into my car. But I'd start by not buying that house she promised you. Something tells me she won't be able to afford it. As I drove away, my phone lit up with notifications. The video was going viral. Skylar had done her job perfectly. The truth was out there, and no amount of deletion could stop it now. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and investigations, but tonight? Tonight I finally felt free. The Lottery Commission's office was all fluorescent lights and bureaucratic beige. Jonathan sat beside me, laying out documents while 3 commissioners studied them intently. So you have the bodega owner's statement? The head commissioner said. The phone recordings, social media posts, and now these photos from Ms. Powell? Yes, Jonathan replied. Plus the security footage from surrounding businesses showing my client entering the store and purchasing the ticket. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since morning. Bianca's meltdown video had reached millions of views. Lotterygate was trending. Miss? The commissioner looked at me. Why did you wait so long to come forward? Before I could answer, the door burst open. Bianca stormed in, followed by a harried-looking man in an expensive suit. This meeting is private. Jonathan stood up. Like hell it is. Bianca's makeup was smeared, her designer outfit wrinkled. You can't just steal my money. Your money? I laughed. That's rich even for you. My client, her lawyer interrupted, would like to propose a settlement. Jonathan smiled coldly. We're not interested in settlements. We're interested in justice. 50-50 split, Bianca blurted. Come on, Tiff, we're sisters. The commissioners watched this exchange like a tennis match. Sisters? I stood up. Let's talk about being sisters. Show them the footage, Jonathan. He pulled up a video on his tablet, security footage from a cafe across from my apartment. There was Bianca, clearly following me, watching through my window as I checked the lottery numbers. That proves nothing, she shrieked. Maybe not, I agreed. But this does. I played the recording from last night's dinner. Bianca's voice filled the room. I deserved it more. Her lawyer winced. Furthermore, Jonathan added, we have evidence of attempted bribery of a security guard, witness tampering, and fraudulent documentation submitted to this commission. Bianca's face crumpled. Daddy will fix this. He always fixes everything. Not this time. I showed her my phone. He and Mom are cooperating with the investigation. They've provided statements about your confession. They wouldn't dare. Check your messages. She grabbed her phone, scrolling frantically. Her face went from angry to desperate as she read. "This isn't fair," she whispered. "Everything was perfect." "Ms. Norris," the head commissioner addressed Bianca. "Based on the evidence presented, we're freezing all lottery payments pending investigation. Additionally, we'll be referring this case to the district attorney's office." "You can't do that. I've already spent—" "How much?" I interrupted. "How much of my money did you burn through?" Her lawyer touched her arm. "Don't answer that." Almost all of it," she said anyway. "The cars, the clothes, the parties." The room went silent. Millions of dollars gone in a month. "Well," Jonathan smiled, "that's going to make the fraud charges interesting." Bianca's lawyer pulled her toward the door. "We need to discuss your options. Now." "Wait." She turned back to me. "Tiffany, please, you can stop this. Tell them you changed your mind." I looked at my sister. Really looked at her. The designer clothes couldn't hide her desperation now. "You know what's funny?" I said quietly. "All those years, I thought something was wrong with me. Why didn't my parents love me like they loved you? Why wasn't I good enough? But now I realize they did me a favor. They made me strong, independent, everything you're not." "I hate you," she spat. "No, you hate that you can't control me anymore." The commissioners cleared their throats. "If we're done with the family drama, we have some paperwork to process." As Bianca was led away by her lawyer, my phone buzzed one last time. A text from Skylar. "Check Twitter, now." The video from last night's dinner had gone viral. But it wasn't just the confession. Someone had compiled years of social media posts showing Bianca's pattern of taking what she wanted. Consequences be damned. "Your sister's going to need a very good lawyer," Jonathan commented. "She's not my sister anymore," I replied. "She's just someone who taught me a very expensive lesson about family." The head commissioner handed me a stack of forms. "Fill these out. Once verified, we can begin the process of rightful payment." As I started signing, I caught my reflection in the window. For the first time in years, I looked peaceful. Strong. Bianca had always said karma wasn't real. I smiled, thinking of her face when the commissioners mentioned the DA's office. Karma might not be real, but justice? Justice was just getting started. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters. 3 months had passed since the lottery commission meeting, and today was Bianca's sentencing hearing. "Miss, any comment on your sister's plea deal?" A microphone thrust in my face. Jonathan steered me through the crowd. "My client has no comment at this time." Inside, the courtroom was packed. Mom and Dad sat in the back row, looking smaller somehow. They'd aged years in the past months, especially after the investigation revealed they'd unknowingly aided Bianca's schemes over the years. Destiny squeezed my hand as we sat down. "You okay?" Before I could answer, the bailiff called out, "All rise." Bianca was led in wearing an orange jumpsuit instead of her usual designer clothes. Her hair was flat, her face bare of makeup. She wouldn't look at me. "Before we proceed with sentencing," the judge began, "would the defendant like to make a statement?" Bianca's lawyer nudged her. She stood slowly, hands shaking as she held a piece of paper. Her voice cracked. "I've had time to think in jail. About what I did. About who I am." She turned to face me. "I always thought I was protecting you, Tiffany. That's what Mom and Dad told me. Look after your little sister. But somewhere along the way, I started thinking that meant I owned you." The courtroom was silent. "I took your college fund because I convinced myself you didn't really want to go to law school. I sabotaged your job interviews because I couldn't stand the idea of you being more successful than me. And when I saw you buy that ticket," she wiped her eyes, "I watched you check the numbers, saw your face light up, and all I could think was, why her?" Mom was crying softly in the back. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," Bianca continued. "I don't deserve it, but I am sorry. Not just for the ticket, but for everything. For being the worst kind of sister." The judge cleared his throat. Given the defendant's cooperation and guilty plea, this court sentences Bianca to 18 months in federal prison, followed by 5 years probation. Additionally, she is ordered to make full restitution of all spent funds. The gavel struck. Bianca's shoulders slumped. As the bailiff let her out, she paused by my row. "The worst part?" she whispered. "You were right. If I'd just asked, you would have shared it." Then she was gone. Outside, Mom and Dad approached hesitantly. "Tiffany," Mom started, "we've been seeing a therapist, trying to understand how we failed, both of you." "We enabled her," Dad added. "Made excuses. We thought we were showing love, but we were just creating a monster." "And destroying you in the process," Mom whispered. I looked at these broken people who'd shaped my childhood. I'm not angry anymore, I realized. I'm just done. "Will we—" Mom's voice shook. "Will we ever be a family again?" "I don't know. That depends on whether you're ready to see me as I am, not as Bianca's shadow." Jonathan appeared at my elbow. "The press wants statements. Ready?" I nodded, then turned back to my parents. "I'm starting a foundation for siblings of narcissists, victims of financial abuse. You're welcome to get involved, but only if you're ready to acknowledge your part in all this." They nodded tearfully. The press conference was brief. I announced the foundation, spoke about family healing, and declined to comment on Bianca's sentence. But as I was leaving, one reporter called out, "What are you going to do with the remaining lottery money?" I smiled. "Live my life. The right way." Later that evening, I sat with Destiny, Jonathan, and Skylar at our favorite bar. "To justice," Jonathan raised his glass. "To karma," Skylar added. "To freedom," I said quietly. Destiny hugged me. "You know what the best revenge is? Living well." My phone buzzed. A text from the prison. "Bianca, I know you'll probably never read these, but I'm going to write anyway. Every day. Until maybe one day you'll understand how sorry I am." I showed it to Jonathan. "Think she means it?" He shrugged. "People can change. The question is, do you want to be around to see if she does?" I thought about the little girl who once idolized her big sister, about the woman who finally stood up for herself, about the person I was becoming. "I don't know," I answered honestly. But for the first time in my life, that decision is completely mine. Skylar raised her glass again. "To choices." As we clinked glasses, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Peace. Not because of the money or even the justice served, but because finally, after all these years, I was free from Bianca's shadow. And that was worth more than any lottery ticket. The foundation's opening ceremony buzzed with energy. Cameras flashed as I cut the ribbon across the entrance of our new building, the Phoenix Center for Family Healing. "And what inspired the name?" a reporter asked. "Sometimes you have to burn everything down to rise again," I answered, catching sight of Mom and Dad in the crowd. They'd been attending therapy religiously, learning to recognize their enabling behaviors. Inside, during the reception, Destiny nudged me. "Look who's here." Skylar walked in, followed by a familiar figure in prison sweats, accompanied by a guard. My heart stopped. "She got permission for a 4-hour release," Skylar explained quickly. "To see what her actions helped create." Bianca looked different. Smaller, somehow. The prison uniform hung loose on her frame, and her face was free of its usual mask of makeup and superiority. "This is amazing, Tiff," she said softly, gesturing at the center. "All these people you're going to help. Want to see something?" I led her to a wall of photos, survivors sharing their stories. "Read that one." She stepped closer to a particular story. "My sister took everything from me, but in losing it all, I found myself. That's our story," she whispered. "One of many. Turns out we're not as unique as we thought." Jonathan appeared with a stack of papers. "The last of the restitution paperwork. Once you're released, you'll start making payments." Bianca nodded. "I've been taking business classes in prison, learning to do things the right way this time." "Good," I said simply. "I read all your letters," I added after a moment. "Every single one." Her head snapped up. You never responded. I wasn't ready, but I read them. A commotion near the entrance drew our attention. Dad was having an intense conversation with Mom, who was dabbing at her eyes. They're trying, Bianca observed. Really trying. Yeah, they are. Do you think? She hesitated. Do you think we'll ever be okay? I looked around the center, at the people sharing stories, finding strength in their shared experiences. At my parents, learning to love without enabling. At Bianca, finally facing her own demons. I think we'll be different, I replied. Better maybe, but never the same. I can live with different, she said quietly. The guard signaled it was time to go. Bianca turned to leave, then stopped. That lottery ticket, it wasn't really about the money, was it? No, I smiled sadly. It was about power, control, the same things it was always about. And now? Now I have something better than money or power. I have peace. After she left, Destiny found me staring at the wall of stories. You okay? You know what's weird? I gestured at the photos. Every person here has a similar story. Family who took and took until there was nothing left. But look at them now. Strong, she agreed. Like you. Jonathan joined us, champagne in hand. To the Phoenix Center's first day. And many more, added Skylar, who'd become our social media director. My phone buzzed, a text from Mom. We're heading out, too emotional, but we're proud of you. Both of you. I showed it to Destiny. Baby steps. Speaking of steps, Jonathan grinned. Wait until they hear about the satellite centers we're planning. One battle at a time, I laughed. Today we celebrate this victory. Looking around at my chosen family, Jonathan with his legal brilliance, Destiny with her unwavering support, Skylar with her tech-savvy loyalty, I felt something click into place. The money hadn't made me whole. The revenge hadn't healed me. What had transformed me was finally standing up and saying enough, finding my voice, my strength. A young woman approached me, clutching a registration form. Is it really free? The counseling? Everything's free, I assured her. That's what the foundation is for. My sister, she started crying. She took everything. I hugged her gently. Then this is exactly where you need to be. As I helped her fill out the form, I caught my reflection in the window. I barely recognized the confident woman staring back at me. She looked nothing like the scared girl who'd bought a lottery ticket hoping to escape her sister's shadow. That ticket had changed everything, just not in the way I'd expected. Instead of buying freedom, it had forced me to fight for it, to earn it. And looking at all these survivors, these phoenixes rising from their own ashes, I knew I'd spent the money exactly right. Some things, after all, are worth more than gold. The phone buzzed against my desk, its screen lighting up with an unknown number. My heart skipped as I glanced between it and the damning documents spread across my computer screen. Someone knew. They had to. I'm Samantha, and until that moment, I was just another corporate drone at Quinn Enterprises, working beneath the watchful eye of my Uncle Connor. Family business, the kind where secrets stay buried and loyalty means everything. Or at least that's what I thought until 10 minutes ago. Hello? I answered, my voice steadier than I felt. Silence. Then a click. My hands trembled as I returned to the spreadsheets I'd discovered buried in our company's archived files. The numbers didn't lie. Millions in unexplained transfers, shell companies, and what looked suspiciously like money laundering. My cousin Caleb's digital fingerprints were all over it. Hey, Sam, got a minute? Sophia's head popped around my office door. My colleague's usually cheerful face was drawn with concern. Connor's looking for you. Something about the quarterly reports? I quickly minimized the screen. Thanks, I'll head up soon. Everything okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. I'm fine, I lied, gathering my thoughts. Just processing some numbers. She lingered in the doorway. Listen, if you need someone to talk to... I said I'm fine, I snapped, then immediately regretted it. Sorry, Sophia. It's been a long day. After she left, I pulled up my email and started drafting a message to the SEC. My finger hovered over the send button as memories flooded back. Family dinners, Christmas mornings, my uncle's proud smile when he'd hired me fresh out of college. But then I remembered the conversations I'd overheard, the way Caleb had been acting lately, the unexplained luxury cars and vacation homes. My phone buzzed again. This time, a text from my sister Vivienne. Dinner at Mom's tonight. Don't forget. I closed my eyes, knowing this might be the last normal family dinner I'd ever attend. The evidence was irrefutable. The company my grandfather had built from nothing had become a front for something corrupt, something ugly. Samantha? Uncle Connor's voice boomed from my doorway, making me jump. There you are, coming up to review those reports? I forced a smile, minimizing windows on my screen. Of course, just finishing something up. He stepped into my office, his presence filling the room like it always had. Everything all right? You seem distracted lately. Just busy, I said, standing up. Lots to process. That's my girl, always the dedicated one. He clapped a hand on my shoulder. Unlike your cousin. Between us, Caleb's been worrying me lately. Maybe you could talk to him. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'll try. I lied again, feeling sick to my stomach. As we walked to his office, my phone buzzed one more time. Another unknown number, this time with a message. I know what you found. Meet me at Carter's coffee shop tomorrow at 8 a.m. if you want to do the right thing. Important message? Connor asked, noticing my expression. I shook my head, pocketing the phone. Just spam. In his office, surrounded by photos of our family, including one of me at my college graduation, beaming between him and Caleb, I made my decision. The SEC email sat in my drafts folder, waiting. Family meant everything, but so did integrity. Sometimes doing the right thing meant being willing to burn it all down. Uncle Connor, I said, interrupting his monologue about quarterly projections. Have you ever had to choose between loyalty and truth? He paused, studying me with those sharp eyes that had always seemed to see right through me. Interesting question. Why do you ask? Just thinking about grandfather, I guess, about his legacy. Connor's expression softened. He built this company on trust, Samantha, on family, never forget that. I nodded, feeling the weight of my USB drive in my pocket, loaded with copies of everything I'd found. I won't. That evening, after everyone else had left the office, I sent the email. Then I drove to my mother's house for dinner, knowing it would be the last time I'd be welcome there. As I pulled into the driveway, my phone buzzed one final time. The unknown number again? See you tomorrow. Bring everything you have. And Samantha? Be careful who you trust. I deleted the message, straightened my shoulders, and walked inside to face my family. For now, I was still one of them. By this time tomorrow, I'd be the traitor who destroyed everything they held dear. But sometimes, I reminded myself, destruction is necessary for rebirth. 2 weeks after I sent that email, my world imploded. I was in my apartment when the news broke. Caleb's arrest plastered across every local news channel. The footage showed him being let out of Quinn Enterprises in handcuffs, his designer suit wrinkled, his face a mask of rage. My phone started ringing immediately. Vivienne. What did you do? Her voice cracked with fury. Tell me you didn't do this to our family. Viv, don't. Just don't. Mom's crying. Uncle Connor is... I've never seen him like this. How could you? The line went dead before I could respond. Within minutes, my social media exploded with notifications. Family members unfriending me, blocking me. Messages ranging from disappointed to threatening. A knock at my door made me jump. Through the peephole, I saw Sophia, looking nervous. You shouldn't be here, I said, letting her in. They'll figure out you helped me. They already did. She held up her phone, showing me an email. I've been fired, along with anyone they suspect might have known about the investigation. I'm so sorry. Don't be. I knew what I was getting into. She sat on my couch, running fingers through her hair. But Samantha, there's something else. Something about Caleb's arrest doesn't add up. My TV was still playing the news coverage. Uncle Connor stood at a podium outside the company building, his face grave. This betrayal, his voice boomed through my speakers, comes not just from federal authorities, but from within our own family. My niece Samantha has chosen to destroy everything we've built. She has fabricated evidence against her own cousin, manipulated data, and... I switched it off, hands shaking. He's lying. I didn't fabricate anything. I know, Sophia said quietly. But that's not what I mean. The transactions you found? They were backdated. Someone wanted you to find them. My doorbell rang again. This time it was Aunt Melina, Caleb's mother. When I opened the door, her hand cracked across my face before I could speak. You vindictive little snake, she hissed. My son is in jail because of you. Your son is in jail because he broke the law. I shot back, touching my stinging cheek. Or did you think those millions appeared by magic? You have no idea what you've done. Her voice dropped to a whisper. No idea what's really going on. But you will. When everything falls apart, remember this moment. Remember you caused it. After she left, Sophia helped me pack a bag. You can't stay here, she insisted. They know where you live and they're out for blood. I'm not running away. It's not running away, it's being smart. Besides, she smiled grimly, don't you have a meeting to get to? I looked at her sharply. How did you... The coffee shop messages. That was Abel Taylor. He's a lawyer I know, specializes in corporate whistleblower cases. He's been building a case against Quinn Enterprises for months. You just gave him the final pieces. My phone buzzed with a text from Vivian. Uncle Connor is having an emergency board meeting. They're voting to freeze your shares in the company. Hope you're happy with yourself. I smiled, despite everything. They didn't know about the new company I'd quietly registered last month, or the clients I'd been courting. They thought they were cutting me off, but I was already 10 steps ahead. Tell Abel I'll meet him tomorrow, I told Sophia. Right now I have another stop to make. The prison visiting area was cold and sterile. Caleb sat across from me, his eyes hollow. Come to gloat? He spat. Come to understand. Those transactions were backdated, Caleb. Someone set you up and I think you know who. His face went pale. Get out. Who are you protecting? What are you afraid of? I said get out. He stood up so fast his chair clattered backward. Guards move forward. You think you're so righteous, but you have no idea what you've started. When it all comes out, they dragged him away before he could finish, but his words echoed in my head all the way to my hotel room. As I checked in under a false name, my phone lit up with one last message from an unknown number. Smart move, getting out of your apartment. Tomorrow, 8 a.m. I'll show you how deep this really goes. Abel. I stared out the hotel window at the city lights, thinking about Caleb's face, Aunt Melina's words, Uncle Connor's lies. Someone had orchestrated this whole thing, using me as their unwitting pawn. But they'd underestimated me. They thought they'd destroyed me, but they'd only set me free. Carter's coffee shop buzzed with morning activity as I spotted a man in a crisp navy suit, sitting alone with 2 coffee cups in front of him. He stood as I approached, extending his hand. Abel Taylor, he said warmly. Though I suppose you figured that out already. The mysterious texter himself. I sat down, accepting the coffee he pushed toward me. So why all the cloak and dagger routine? Because walls have ears, especially at Quinn Enterprises. He pulled out a tablet, sliding it across the table. Take a look at this. The screen showed a complex web of transactions, but these were different from the ones I'd found. These went back years, involving companies I'd never heard of. Your cousin Caleb? Abel leaned forward. He's just a fall guy. The real architect of this scheme is someone much higher up. Uncle Connor? Think bigger. He swiped to another document. Your uncle answers to people too. Powerful people who needed a legitimate business to wash their money through. My coffee turned bitter in my mouth. How long have you been investigating this? 2 years, but we could never get inside access until I happened across those files. I set my cup down hard. So Sophia working with me, that wasn't a coincidence? She came to us first, actually. Said she suspected something was wrong but needed help proving it. Abel's eyes softened. She risked everything to help you, Samantha. My phone buzzed. Aunt Melina's number flashed on the screen. Speaking of risks. Abel nodded at my phone. You should answer that. I did, bracing myself for more accusations. Instead, Melina's voice came through shaking. I need to see you, she whispered. Please. Not about Caleb, about something else. Something worse. I looked at Abel, who was already gathering his things. Go, he said. But be careful. Record everything. 20 minutes later, I sat across from Aunt Melina in a small park. She'd aged years and days, her perfectly maintained appearance now crumbling. They're going to kill him, she said without preamble. Caleb, they're going to make it look like suicide in his cell. Who is? The same people who own your uncle. The same people who... She choked back a sob. Who killed your father. The world tilted sideways. Dad died in a car accident. Is that what Connor told you? She laughed bitterly. Your father found out what was happening, just like you did. But he confronted them directly instead of going to the authorities. 3 days later, his brakes failed on that mountain road. My phone buzzed again. Sophia this time. Urgent. Office being raided. Connor destroying files. Need access to your old computer now. I have to go. I stood up, my mind racing. But Melina, I need you to tell Abel everything you just told me. Everything you know. Who's Abel? Someone who can help, like he's helping me. I showed her my phone screen, displaying the company registration documents. I'm not just taking them down, Melina. I'm building something new, something legitimate. When this is over, the family name won't mean corruption anymore. Her eyes widened as she read. This is why you've been meeting with our old clients. The ones who weren't involved in the scheme, yes. They're ready to jump ship as soon as everything breaks. I squeezed her hand. Help us. For Caleb. Back at my hotel, Sophia was waiting with her laptop. We need your login credentials. They haven't deactivated them yet. They're about to, I said, typing quickly. There, that should give you access to my cloud backup. Everything I found plus whatever was on my computer when they fired me. My phone lit up with a text from Vivian. We need to talk. Now. Go, Sophia urged. I've got this covered. Abel's getting a protection order for Caleb as we speak. I found Vivian at our childhood treehouse, of all places. She sat with her legs dangling over the edge, looking young and lost. Is it true? She asked as I climbed up. About Dad? How did you... Melina called me right after you left her. Said I deserved to know. She wiped her eyes. All these years I thought you were the troublemaker. The one who couldn't just play along. But you were right. About everything. I sat beside her, our shoulders touching like when we were kids. Help me fix this, Viv. Help me make it right. She pulled out her phone, showing me emails she'd secretly archived. Already am, sis. Already am. As the sun set behind the trees, my phone buzzed one last time. Abel. It's happening. Tomorrow everything breaks. Are you ready? I looked at my sister, thought of Melina, of Sophia, of all the pieces falling into place. Ready, I texted back. Let's finish this. The package arrived at my hotel room door just before dawn, a plain manila envelope with no return address. Inside, I found a single photograph. My father, sitting at his desk, time-stamped 3 days before his death. On the back, written in red ink, like father, like daughter, back off. My hands were still shaking when Abel called. Turn on the news, he said without greeting. Every channel showed the same scene. Federal agents swarming Quinn Enterprises, carrying out boxes of documents. Uncle Connor stood at the entrance, his face ashen, as reporters shouted questions. My phone exploded with notifications. Vivian. Dad's old office. Now. Found something. I met her in the abandoned building where our father had run his consulting business. She was already there, kneeling by a loose floorboard. "Look what I found," she said, pulling out a dusty metal box. Inside were USB drives, documents, and a letter addressed to me. "He knew," I whispered, scanning the letter. "He knew everything, Viv. The money laundering, the shell companies, all of it. He was building a case." "Sam." She held up one of the drives. "There's more. These recordings..." Dad wasn't just gathering evidence. He was part of it initially. He was trying to make it right when they killed him. The door creaked behind us. We spun around to find Melina standing there, pale as a ghost. "I've been following you," she admitted. "After our talk yesterday, I remembered something. About the night your father died." She pulled out her phone, showing us a video. "I never showed this to anyone, not even Connor." The shaky footage showed our father arguing with two men in suits outside the office building. The timestamp matched the photo I'd received that morning. "I need names," I said. Melina shook her head. "It's not safe. They already threatened Caleb in prison. If I tell you..." "They killed my father." I slammed my hand on the desk. "They're using our family's company to launder money for who knows what. And now they're threatening me too. I got this morning." I showed her the photograph. Her face went white. "Where did you get this?" "Same place you got your warning about Caleb, I'm guessing." My phone buzzed. "Sophia. Emergency. Someone's deleted everything from the cloud. All our evidence gone." "No," I smiled, holding up the USB drives. "Not everything." Vivian's phone chimed next. She read the message and grabbed my arm. "Uncle Connor's calling an emergency family meeting. Tonight. Everyone has to attend." "It's a trap," Melina said immediately. "They'll try to silence all of us at once. Or it's our chance," I countered, "to expose everything. We have Dad's evidence, your video, the photo they sent me." "And me," said a voice from the doorway. We all turned to see Abel standing there with Sophia. "We've got a federal warrant and agent standing by. All we need is for Connor to incriminate himself." "He won't," Melina said. "He's too careful." "Unless..." Vivian's eyes lit up. "Unless he thinks he's only talking to family." "Sam, give me your phone." She typed out a message to Connor. "You win. I'll back off. Just let me explain myself to everyone tonight." His response came immediately. "Finally seeing reason. 8 p.m. The house." "He'll be recording everything," Melina warned, "looking for evidence he can use against us." "Good," Abel smiled. "So will we." That evening, I stood outside my childhood home wearing a wire under my blazer. Vivian squeezed my hand before we went in. "Whatever happens," she whispered, "I'm with you." The family sat around the massive dining table. Aunts, uncles, cousins, all except Caleb. Uncle Connor stood at the head looking triumphant. "Samantha," he said warmly, "ready to apologize to everyone?" I stood up, feeling the weight of my father's letter in my pocket. "Actually, Uncle Connor, I have a story to tell. About a man who discovered something terrible happening in his family's company. About how he tried to fix it and what happened to him because of that." His smile froze. "Samantha, it's a story about my father," I continued, pulling out the photo I'd received that morning. "And about the men who visited him 3 days before his death." The room went silent. In the distance, sirens began to wail. "Perhaps," Abel's voice rang out as he stepped in from the hallway, federal agents filing in behind him. "You'd like to tell us about those men, Mr. Quinn?" I watched my uncle's face crumble as he realized what was happening. As the agents read him his rights, I felt Vivian's hand slip into mine again. The truth was finally coming out. But at what cost? The boardroom of my new company felt strange. Sleek, modern, and most importantly, clean. No hidden files, no secret accounts, just honest business. 3 weeks after Connor's arrest, I sat facing the former clients of Quinn Enterprises, laying out my vision. The transition will be seamless, I explained, sliding contracts across the polished table. Same service quality, but with complete transparency. And the legal issues? Margaret, our biggest potential client, raised an eyebrow. We can't risk association with... Everything's been vetted by federal authorities. Abel cut in smoothly from beside me. Ms. Quinn's new venture is completely separate from the previous entity. My phone buzzed. A message from the prison. Caleb wanted to see me. Again. Excuse me, I said, standing. My colleague Sophia will walk you through the details. In the hallway, Vivian waited with coffee. Another visit request? Third this week. I took the cup gratefully. He keeps insisting there's more to the story. Maybe there is. She pulled out her tablet. Look what I found in Dad's old files. The document showed a series of transactions predating even Connor's involvement. Names I recognized. Powerful people in politics, finance, technology. This goes higher than we thought. Vivienne whispered. Way higher. My phone rang. Melina, turn on the news now. We rushed to my office just in time to see Connor being led into court. The headline below read, Quinn Enterprises CEO claims conspiracy, names major players. He's talking, Vivian breathed. Because they want him to, came Abel's voice. He stood in the doorway, face grim. Think about it. Why now? Why is he suddenly naming names? Because they're the wrong names, I realized. He's creating a false trail. My office phone lit up. Margaret and the other clients were leaving. I rushed back to the boardroom, but it was too late. We can't take the risk, Margaret said apologetically. Not with these new allegations flying around. I watched months of planning crumble as they filed out. Back in my office, I slumped into my chair. We need to talk to Caleb, Vivian insisted. If Connor's creating a false trail, maybe Caleb knows the real one. 2 hours later, I sat across from my cousin in the prison visiting room. He looked better than last time. Clearer, more focused. They killed Dad, didn't they? He asked without preamble. Yes. Because he found out about the political connections? I leaned forward. What political connections? The ones Connor's not naming. Caleb glanced around nervously. Look, I was just the numbers guy. I moved money where they told me to. But sometimes, late at night, I'd see things. Names. Real names. We need those names, Caleb. You don't understand, he hissed. These people, they own judges, cops, entire departments. Why do you think Connor's still alive? He's playing his part. My phone buzzed. Sophia. Emergency. Office broken into, all files copied. They're moving fast, Abel said when I showed him the message back at the office. They know we're close. Then we move faster. I pulled out my father's letter. Dad mentioned a backup plan. Something he called Protocol 7. Melina, does that mean anything to you? She'd been quiet since arriving, but now she straightened. The 7th floor. Your father's old building had a hidden room there, behind the maintenance closet. That's where we're going, I announced. Tonight. It's too dangerous, Abel protested. They're watching us. Then we give them something else to watch. I turned to Sophia. Remember that press release we prepared? About the new company? Send it now. But we just lost all our clients, she said. Exactly. While they're celebrating our failure, we'll be finding the truth. That night, as business news reported the collapse of my new venture, 4 of us crept into my father's old building. The 7th floor was dark, dusty with disuse. Here, Melina whispered, pushing aside a shelf in the maintenance closet. Behind it, a small door. Inside, we found a single laptop, ancient but carefully preserved. As it booted up, a video file started playing automatically. My father's face filled the screen. Samantha, if you're watching this, you've figured it out. Everything you need is here. The real names, the real conspiracy. But baby girl, be careful. What you're about to learn, The screen suddenly went black. Behind us, a voice spoke. "That's quite far enough." We spun around to face the darkness, and I finally understood why Uncle Connor had been so afraid. Senator Marcus stepped out of the shadows, flanked by two men in dark suits, the same men from Melina's video of my father. "I was wondering when you'd find this place," he said, his politician's smile never reaching his eyes. "Your father was equally persistent. Must run in the family." "You killed him," I said, my voice shaking with rage. Now. Accidents happen, just like they might happen to your cousin Caleb if this goes any further." He gestured to the laptop. "Hand it over." "It's already too late," Abel spoke up. "Everything's been uploaded to secure servers." The senator laughed. "Mr. Taylor, please. We both know that's not true. You're bluffing, just like you bluffed about having evidence against Connor." My blood ran cold. How did he know about that? "You've been watching us," Vivian realized. "All along. Of course we have. Did you think Connor's confession was spontaneous? We've been directing this little play from the beginning." He stepped closer. "Though I must admit, you've been more resourceful than we anticipated." "Why are you telling us this?" Melina demanded. "Because, Mrs. Quinn, I'm offering you all a choice. The same choice we offered Connor." He spread his hands. "Work with us, and your family's wealth is restored. Fight us, and, well..." He glanced meaningfully at the laptop. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Sophia's name flashed on the screen. "Don't answer that," one of the suits warned, reaching for his weapon. But the senator raised his hand. "Let her. This should be interesting." I put the phone on speaker. Sophia's voice came through, clear and confident. "It's done. All of it. Every major news outlet has the files." "What files?" The senator's smile faltered. "The ones my father didn't keep here," I said, feeling a surge of triumph. "The ones he mailed to his old law school friend the day before he died. The friend who kept them safe until I was ready." "You're bluffing," he snarled, but uncertainty crept into his voice. "Check your phone, Senator." Abel smiled. "Breaking news should be hitting right about now." The senator's phone chimed. As he read, his face drained of color. "Impossible," he whispered. "My father knew you'd find this place." I continued, strength flowing into my voice. "Knew you'd think you had won. That's why he made sure the real evidence was somewhere else. Somewhere even I didn't know about until Sophia decoded the message hidden in his letter." The suited men looked uncertainly at their boss, whose phone was now buzzing continuously. "Sir," one said urgently, "we need to go. Now." "This isn't over," the senator hissed, backing toward the door. "Actually, it is," came a new voice. Federal agents poured into the room, led by a woman I recognized from the news, the head of the FBI's white-collar crime division. "Senator Marcus," she said formally, "you're under arrest for conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and accessory to murder." As they led him away, he turned back to me. "You have no idea what you've done. The people I work for will be joining you shortly." The FBI agent cut in. "Ms. Quinn's father left quite a detailed trail. We've been building this case for years, waiting for the final pieces." Later, in my office, we watched the dominoes fall on every news channel. Politicians, business leaders, judges, all exposed by my father's hidden files. "He knew," Vivian said softly. "He knew they'd kill him, so he made sure the truth would come out eventually." My phone buzzed. "Caleb. Just saw the news. Guards say I'll be released tomorrow. The evidence shows I was coerced. Sam, thank you." Another message followed from Margaret. "Meeting tomorrow? Think we need to revisit those contracts." "So what now?" Melina asked, looking around at our small group of conspirators. "Now," I said, pulling out fresh contracts. "We build something honest. Something worthy of my father's sacrifice." "And the family?" Vivian asked quietly. I looked at Melina. Thought of Caleb, even Uncle Connor. "We heal. Together." Abel raised an eyebrow. Even Connor? He made his choices, I acknowledged, but he also protected us in his own way. Maybe that counts for something. My phone buzzed one last time. An email from an unknown address. Inside was a video file. My father recorded the day he died. I knew you'd finish what I started. His voice filled the room. Remember, Samantha, true legacy isn't about money or power. It's about doing what's right, no matter the cost. I looked around at my unlikely team. My sister, my aunt, my friends. Together, we'd torn down a corrupt empire. Now came the harder part. Building a better one. He's gone. Vivian burst into my office, face flushed with panic. Caleb's disappeared with all the new business proposals. I stared at her, my coffee cup frozen halfway to my mouth. What? The thumb drive with all our client presentations, financial projections, everything. Gone. Along with him. My phone rang. Sophia. Sam, you need to see this. Caleb just emailed all our potential clients, claiming we stole his intellectual property. 3 months of careful planning, of rebuilding trust, threatened to unravel in minutes. I grabbed my keys. Where are you going? Vivienne called after me. To stop history from repeating itself. I found Caleb exactly where I expected. Our grandfather's old lake house. His car was parked haphazardly in the gravel driveway. I wondered how long it would take you to figure it out, he said as I walked onto the deck. He sat in our grandfather's rocking chair, laptop open on his knees. Why, Caleb? Because it should have been mine. He slammed the laptop shut. I was the one who stayed loyal. I was the one who went to jail. And now you're giving away our clients to your new company? I'm not giving them away. I'm offering them a legitimate business partnership. With you in charge. He laughed bitterly. Always perfect, Samantha, Dad's favorite, the moral compass of the family. Is that what this is about? Dad? He trusted you with everything. His plans, his evidence, his legacy. What did I get? A prison sentence and a ruined reputation. You got a second chance, I said quietly, which is more than Dad ever got. His face crumpled. They would have killed him anyway, even if I had warned him. The words hung in the air between us. My hands started shaking. You knew? My voice came out as a whisper. You knew they were going to kill him? I overheard Connor talking to the senator. I thought they were just trying to scare him off. Tears streamed down his face. By the time I realized what they really meant, it was too late. My phone buzzed. Abel. Damage control in progress, but we need those proposals back now. Give me the drive, Caleb. Or what? You'll send me back to prison? He stood up, walking to the deck railing. Maybe I should just upload everything online. Let everyone see your precious plans. Those plans include you. He turned. What? I pulled out a document from my bag. Read it. Page 3, partnership structure. His hands trembled as he read. 20% ownership? Vice President of Operations? Your family, Caleb. Despite everything. Dad believed in second chances. That's why he left all that evidence. Not just to expose the truth, but to give us a chance to make things right. I don't deserve it. No, I agreed. But you can earn it. Starting now. He pulled the thumb drive from his pocket, staring at it. I already sent those emails. My phone buzzed again. Sophia. Crisis averted. Clients all received our explanation. Most found Caleb's claims suspicious given his history. We can fix this, I said, holding out my hand. Together. The drive felt heavy in my palm when he finally handed it over. Behind us, gravel crunched as another car pulled up. Sorry I'm late, Vivian called out, walking onto the deck. Traffic was terrible. She looked between us. Everything okay? Getting there, I said. Caleb was just about to sign his partnership agreement. Partnership? She raised an eyebrow. People change, Viv. I pulled out a pen. Sometimes they just need a reason to. Later that evening, as we sat in my office reviewing the damage control strategy, Abel shook his head. "You're either brilliant or crazy," he said. "Possibly both." Giving him a stake in the company after what he did? "She's being strategic," Vivian defended. "Keep your friends close." "No," I interrupted. "I'm being family. The right way this time." My phone lit up with a message from Melina. "Heard about Caleb. Thank you for believing in him. Your father would be proud." I looked through my office window at Caleb, sitting with Sophia, earnestly explaining something to our clients via video conference. His shoulders were straight, his voice clear and confident. "Second chances," I murmured, thinking of Dad's last video. "That's what legacy really means." Abel gathered his things to leave. "Big presentation tomorrow. You ready to show the world what honest business looks like?" I smiled, watching my cousin, my sister, our team working together. "More than ready," I said. "We're just getting started." The conference room buzzed with anticipation as I stood at the podium, facing the largest gathering of business leaders our city had seen in decades. Camera flashes popped from the media section. "Today," I began, "we're not just launching a company. We're redefining what family business means." In the front row, Vivian gave me an encouraging nod. Beside her, Caleb sat straight-backed in his new suit, pride replacing his former shame. Melina dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. "Quinn Enterprises was built on secrets," I continued, "but Quinn Solutions is built on transparency." I clicked to the first slide, showing our revolutionary business model. Every transaction traceable, every deal ethical, every partnership meaningful. My phone vibrated in my pocket. A message from the prison. I ignored it. Uncle Connor could wait. "Some of you knew my father," I said, my voice steady. "He believed business could be both profitable and principled. He died defending that belief. Today, we prove him right." The presentation flowed perfectly. When I opened the floor for questions, Margaret stood first. "As someone who worked with both Quinn Enterprises," she said, "I have to ask, how can we be sure history won't repeat itself?" Because of this, Caleb stood up, unscripted. "May I, Sam?" I gestured him forward, heart pounding. "I was part of the old system," he said, his voice carrying clearly. "I chose wrong. I hurt people. But standing here today, helping build something honest." He pulled out a folder. "These are documents showing every illegal transaction I ever handled. I'm submitting them to the FBI voluntarily." Gasps rippled through the room. This wasn't part of our plan. "My cousin offered me redemption," Caleb continued. "Now I'm earning it. Complete transparency, starting with me." Cameras flashed frantically. In the back, Abel gave me a thumbs up. The questions flew fast after that. With each answer, I could feel the room's skepticism melting into genuine interest. By the time I announced our first major contract, a government infrastructure project with unprecedented public oversight, the energy was electric. "One last thing," I said as the presentation wound down. "Every employee in our company, from executives to entry level, will have profit sharing and voting rights on major decisions. Because true legacy isn't built by individuals. It's built by family, both blood and chosen." The applause was deafening. As reporters swarmed forward, my phone buzzed again. This time, I checked it. "Ready to talk?" Connor's message read. "I have information about the senator's remaining allies. What do you think?" I showed the message to Abel. "Could be useful," he mused. "But be careful." "Actually," Vivian cut in, "let me handle Connor. You've got something more important to do." She nodded toward the door, where Sophia stood with an elderly man I'd never seen before. "Ms. Quinn," he said as I approached, "I'm Robert Marshall, your father's law professor, the one he trusted with those files." My throat tightened. "Thank you for keeping them safe, for waiting until the right time." "Don't thank me," he smiled. "Thank him. He knew exactly who you'd become." He handed me an envelope. "He left this too. Said to give it to you when you'd finished what he started." Inside was a single photo. Dad and me at my college graduation, both of us laughing. On the back, he'd written, "The best legacy is the truth we leave behind. I'm so proud of you, baby girl." "Sam," Caleb called out urgently. "The governor's office is on the line. They want to discuss statewide infrastructure contracts." I tucked the photo into my jacket pocket, right over my heart. "Professor Marshall," I said, "would you like to see what your former student's legacy has become?" He followed me back to where my team waited. Vivian coordinating with PR, Caleb on the phone with government officials, Sophia preparing contract documents, Abel reviewing legal details, Melina handling client relations. "Your father once told me his biggest dream was to build something that would outlast him," Marshall said quietly. Something true. I watched my family, both blood and chosen, working together to create something honest, something real. "He did," I replied. "He built us." My phone buzzed one final time. A news alert. "Quinn Solutions sets new standard for corporate transparency." I smiled, thinking of Dad's words in that last video. True legacy isn't about money or power. It's about doing what's right, no matter the cost. We'd paid the cost. Now we were claiming the legacy. The right way, the true way, together.
The sound of their laughter hit me before I even opened the bedroom door. I'd come home early from my sister's, thinking I'd surprise Jason with takeout from his favorite Thai place. Instead, I was the one getting the surprise of my life. I'm Marley, and until that moment, I thought I had it all. A successful career in marketing, a beautiful home in the suburbs, and what I believed was a rock-solid marriage of 8 years. Funny how life can shatter everything you think you know in the span of a heartbeat. My hand froze on the doorknob as I heard Rosalie's voice through the door. She has no idea, does she? God, we've been so careful. Careful is my middle name, Jason replied, followed by the rustle of sheets. Once the transfer goes through next week, we'll have everything set up. Poor, trusting Marley won't know what hit her. My stomach lurched, but I forced myself to stay silent, pressing my ear against the door. "How much are you moving?" Rosalie asked. "Everything. The joint accounts, the investment portfolio, even her inheritance from her dad. She gave me access last year, remember? By the time she figures it out, we'll be sipping margaritas in Cabo." I bit down hard on my knuckles to keep from screaming. Rosalie, my best friend since college, the woman who'd been my maid of honor, who'd held my hand through my father's funeral, was in my bed with my husband, plotting to destroy me. "What about the house?" Rosalie's voice dripped with false concern. "Already working on it. Convinced her to sign it over to an LLC last month. Said it was for tax purposes." Jason's smug laugh made my blood boil. "She trusts me completely. It's almost too easy." The takeout bag slipped from my fingers, landing with a soft thud on the carpet. Inside the room, everything went quiet. "Did you hear something?" Rosalie whispered. That was my cue. I straightened my spine, took a deep breath, and walked down the hallway, making sure my heels clicked loudly against the hardwood floors. "Jason," I called out cheerfully, "I'm home early." The scrambling sounds from the bedroom would have been comical if they weren't breaking my heart. I counted to 30, giving them time to dress, before walking back to the bedroom door and pushing it open. There they stood, Jason buttoning his shirt, Rosalie smoothing her hair. Our bed, the bed we'd picked out together at that cute boutique in Portland, was a rumpled mess. "Marley," Rosalie's face was flushed. "I just stopped by to drop off those contracts you wanted to review." I smiled, amazed at how steady my voice was. "Really? Where are they?" She glanced at Jason, panic flickering across her face. "They're downstairs," Jason cut in smoothly, walking over to kiss my cheek. I fought the urge to recoil. "How's Tessa doing?" "Oh, you know my sister." I said lightly, meeting his eyes. Always full of drama, but she gave me some interesting perspective today. Yeah? Jason's confidence wavered slightly. Mm-hmm. She reminded me that sometimes the people closest to us aren't who they seem. I turned to Rosalie. Isn't that right, bestie? Rosalie's face went pale. I should go. Lots of work to catch up on. I watched her grab her purse and practically run from the room, Jason's eyes following her every move. The moment we heard the front door close, he turned to me with that charming smile that used to make my knees weak. Want to order in tonight? I'm thinking Thai. I looked at the floor where my dropped takeout bag still sat, already covered, though I seemed to have lost my appetite. Everything okay? He reached for me, but I stepped back. Just tired. Think I'll take a shower and turn in early. I forced another smile. By the way, did you handle that transfer we talked about? For the investment account? Not yet, he said quickly. Been swamped at work. I nodded, watching him lie to my face. No rush. We have all the time in the world. As I walked to the bathroom, my mind was already racing. They thought I was stupid, naive, trusting Marley. They had no idea what was coming. I caught my reflection in the mirror, calm, collected, already plotting. They wanted to play games? Fine. But they were about to learn that I wrote the rule book. I turned on the shower to mask any sound and pulled out my phone. Tessa, remember that conversation we had about karma? I'm going to need your help with something. You're sure about this? Tessa whispered as we sat in her home office, hunched over her laptop. It was 7 a.m. and I'd made up an excuse about an early morning yoga class to Jason. Look at these emails. I pointed to the screen, my hand shaking slightly. They've been planning this for months. After discovering their betrayal 3 days ago, I'd been methodically gathering evidence. Jason's password had been our wedding date. So much for careful. His email account was a gold mine of deceit. That bastard, Tessa muttered, scrolling through messages between Jason and Rosalie. They were planning to leave next Thursday and take everything? Everything except what they don't know about. I pulled out my father's old leather journal. Dad always said to keep something for a rainy day. The account he left me in Switzerland? Jason has no idea it exists. The doorbell rang, making us both jump. Tessa checked her security camera feed. It's Aaron, I nodded. Jason's brother had reached out yesterday, saying he needed to talk. When he walked in, his face was grim. Marley, I can't keep quiet anymore. Aaron ran his hands through his hair. Jason's been sleeping with Rosalie? I finished for him. Planning to clean out our accounts? Aaron's jaw dropped. You know? Caught them in the act 3 days ago. I kept my voice steady. How long have you known? 2 months. He couldn't meet my eyes. I confronted him, told him to come clean. He swore he would, but then I saw them at the marina last weekend, looking at boats. Expensive boats. Tessa handed him a coffee. The marina? That's new information. I pulled out my phone, making notes. Aaron, I need to know everything, every detail you can remember. For the next hour, Aaron spilled everything he knew. The offshore accounts, the fake business Jason had set up, the property he'd bought in Rosalie's name, using our money. There's more, Aaron said quietly. Remember that charity gala you couldn't attend last month because you were sick? My stomach clenched. I had food poisoning. Could barely leave the bathroom. It wasn't food poisoning. I overheard them. They put something in your dinner that night. They needed you out of the way so they could meet with some lawyer. The coffee cup in my hand crashed to the floor. Tessa swore, jumping up to grab paper towels. They poisoned me? My voice came out as a whisper. Aaron reached for my hand. I should have told you sooner. I'm so sorry, Marley. I stood up, walking to Tessa's window. Outside, children were riding bikes, neighbors walking dogs. Normal life continuing while mine was in pieces. I need access to everything you have, I said, turning back to Aaron. Bank statements, property records, anything you can get your hands on. Already on it. He pulled out a USB drive, downloaded these from his computer last night. He was too drunk at dinner to notice me slip away. Tessa plugged in the drive, and we spent the next hour documenting everything. By the time we finished, I had enough evidence to bury them both. "What's your next move?" Tessa asked. I checked my phone. 3 texts from Jason asking about dinner plans. One from Rosalie suggesting a girls' lunch tomorrow. First, I'm going to move everything I can to secure accounts. Then, I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. I'm going to play their game better than they ever could. "I'm calling Mom," Tessa declared, already dialing. "You need her lawyer friend's number." "No, not yet." I held up my hand. "They can't suspect anything. I need to be the same trusting, naive Marley they think I am. For now." My phone buzzed again. Jason. "Missing you, babe. Early meeting tomorrow, but can't wait to see you tonight. Love you." I typed back, "Miss you too. Making your favorite dinner." Aaron watched me, concern etched on his face. "You're scary good at that. I learned from the best, didn't I?" I showed them my banking app. "Watch this." With a few taps, I transferred a significant sum from our joint account to a new one I'd set up yesterday. The transfer description read, "Investment Portfolio Reallocation." Exactly what Jason had been doing for weeks. "He's been moving money in small amounts," I explained. "Now I'm doing the same. By the time he notices, it'll be too late." Tessa hugged me tight. "What do you need from us?" I looked at my sister and my soon-to-be ex-brother-in-law, feeling stronger than I had in days. "Just be ready. The show's about to begin." As I drove home, I started planning dinner, Jason's favorite lasagna. He'd never suspect that while he was savoring every bite, I'd be systematically dismantling the life he'd planned with my best friend. Karma, after all, was best served with a side of garlic bread. "Babe, have you seen the statement from our investment account?" Jason called from his home office. I smiled into my coffee cup, counting down in my head. 3, 2, 1. "Is something wrong?" I asked, walking in with the perfect mix of concern and innocence on my face. "There's a large transfer here." He frowned at his screen. "Did you move some money around?" I perched on his desk, letting my hand rest on his shoulder. "Oh, that. Remember that financial advisor you mentioned? The one Rosalie recommended? I finally took her advice and set up a meeting." Jason's face went pale. "You what?" "I thought you'd be proud of me, taking initiative with our finances." I pulled up the advisor's website on my phone. Mr. Thompson had some amazing ideas about portfolio diversification. "You should have discussed this with me first," Jason said, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. "But you're always saying I should be more involved in our finances." I kissed his cheek, feeling him tense. "Don't worry, I followed your example. You know, those transfers you've been making to that new account?" He knocked over his coffee mug, dark liquid spreading across his desk. "What transfers?" "The ones to the LLC. I saw them on our statement and figured that was your strategy." I started dabbing at the spill with tissues. "Is everything okay? You look worried." "Everything's fine," he managed, reaching for his phone. I have a meeting to get to." As soon as he left, I called Tessa. He took the bait. $10 says he's calling Rosalie right now. "Make it 20, she laughed. "Erin's watching her house. Says she just ran out to her car like her hair's on fire." I checked my watch. Perfect timing. The mover should be at the storage unit in 30 minutes. I'd spent the past week secretly moving our most valuable possessions, artwork, jewelry, family heirlooms, into a secure storage facility. Each piece carefully documented and photographed. Let them try to claim I was hiding assets. I had receipts for everything. My phone buzzed with a text from Rosalie. Lunch today? Need to talk about something important. Can't today, I replied, meeting with the financial advisor again. He's so helpful. Thanks for the recommendation. 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times before she responded. What financial advisor? The one you told Jason about? Mr. Thompson? Unless, did I mix something up? No, I mean, yes, that's right. Rain check on lunch? I smirked at her obvious panic. Of course, bestie. The doorbell rang, and I found Aaron on my doorstep with a stack of papers. You need to see these, he said, spreading them across the kitchen counter. Found them in Jason's car this morning while he was at the gym. Property listings in Mexico, passport applications, a handwritten list of account numbers in Rosalie's writing. They're getting sloppy, I noted, photographing everything. Overconfident. There's more. Aaron pulled out his phone, showing me security footage from his company's parking garage. Jason and Rosalie in a heated argument, gesturing wildly. This was 10 minutes ago. Trouble in paradise? I grinned. Send me that footage. Already did. But Marley? Aaron hesitated. Be careful. When Jason feels cornered, he gets dangerous. As if on cue, my phone lit up with Jason's face. Hey, honey. Coming home for lunch? Can't today, I said brightly. Having lunch with your brother. You know, discussing that business opportunity he mentioned? Silence on the other end. Aaron and I exchanged knowing looks. What business opportunity? Jason's voice was sharp. Oh, was it supposed to be a secret? Aaron mentioned some investment potential at his firm. Since I'm getting more involved in our finances, I thought, stay away from my brother. The threat in his voice was clear. Jason, what's wrong? You're scaring me. Just don't make any more financial decisions without consulting me first, okay? After hanging up, I turned to Aaron. He's starting to crack. You're enjoying this way too much, he observed. Enjoying watching the people I trusted most try to destroy me? I started gathering the papers. You bet I am. My phone buzzed again, an alert from my bank. Jason was attempting to access the account I'd transferred money to. Too bad he didn't know about the 2-factor authentication I'd set up, or the fact that Mr. Thompson, the fictional financial advisor, was actually my mother's best friend's son, a forensic accountant who'd been documenting everything. Ready for phase 2? Aaron asked. I nodded, pulling out the divorce papers I'd had drawn up. Time to let them think they're winning. Call Rosalie. Tell her Jason's getting suspicious of me. Let's see how fast she throws him under the bus to save herself. As Aaron made the call, I studied my reflection in the window. The scared, trusting wife was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, someone who knew exactly how this game would end. And it wouldn't be pretty. You look like you haven't slept in days, Bowen said, sliding a coffee across his desk. As my mother's longtime friend and one of the city's top divorce attorneys, his office had become my sanctuary. That's because I haven't. I pulled out my laptop. Look what Rosalie sent me last night. The email was sickeningly sweet, warning me about suspicious activity she'd noticed in my accounts, offering to help me track down any unauthorized transactions. Bowen let out a low whistle. She's trying to cover her tracks. Classic move. That's not all. I played him the voicemail Jason had left, his voice thick with fake concern, suggesting we meet with his financial advisor to protect our assets. They're getting nervous, Bowen observed, making notes. The offshore account transfers kept bouncing back. Every single one. I couldn't help but smile. Turns out those anti-fraud measures I put in place last week are working perfectly. A knock at the door interrupted us. Tessa burst in, waving her phone. You're not going to believe this. Rosalie just called me. What did she want? To warn me about you. Tessa's voice dripped with sarcasm. Says she's worried about your mental health. Claims you've been making irrational financial decisions, that Jason's beside himself with worry. Let me guess. She suggested having me evaluated? My laugh was hollow. They're laying groundwork to claim I'm unstable. Already handled, Bowen interjected. I had you undergo a psychological evaluation last week, remember? You're officially documented as being of completely sound mind. My phone buzzed. Another text from Jason. We need to talk about these transfers. Coming home early today. Perfect timing, I muttered, showing them the message. Ready to put on a show? 2 hours later, I was in our kitchen when Jason walked in. Right on cue, Rosalie was with him. Marley, honey, she started, her face a mask of concern. We need to talk. Of course, I chirped, pulling cookies from the oven. I just baked your favorite, chocolate chip. Remember how we used to make these during our college study sessions? They exchanged glances, thrown off by my cheerfulness. It's about the money you've been moving around, Jason said firmly. We're worried about you. I set down the baking sheet with a clang. Worried? About me? That's so sweet. I turned to Rosalie. Isn't he the best husband? Always looking out for me, just like you're the best friend anyone could ask for. Marley, Rosalie stepped forward, reaching for my hand. We think you might need help, professional help. Oh, I brightened. Like Mr. Thompson? He's been so helpful with the accounts. Or did you mean the other kind of help? I pulled out my phone. Actually, I have something to show you both. Their faces fell as I pulled up the psychological evaluation on my screen. My lawyer suggested I get this done last week. Clean bill of mental health. Isn't that great news? Your lawyer? Jason's voice cracked. Bowen Boyd, Mom's friend. He's been helping me understand all these financial terms. I waved my hand dismissively. You know how confused I get about money matters. The color drained from both their faces. Why do you need a lawyer? Rosalie's voice was barely a whisper. Oh, just being careful, like you both taught me to be. I started packaging up the cookies. These are for Aaron, by the way. He's been so helpful lately. Jason grabbed my arm. What exactly has my brother been helping you with? I looked pointedly at his hand until he released me. Just some investment advice. Speaking of which, how's that property in Mexico coming along? The one you and Rosalie were looking at? The cookie tin crashed to the floor. Rosalie stumbled backward, catching herself on the counter. I should go, she stammered. So soon? But we haven't even talked about the offshore accounts yet. Or should we save that discussion for the lawyers? Jason stepped toward me, his face dark. What game are you playing? Game? I met his gaze steadily. I learned from the best, didn't I? You and Rosalie are excellent teachers. Marley, please, Rosalie pleaded. We can explain. Save it for court. I started cleaning up the spilled cookies. By the way, Jason, you might want to check those account transfers again. Seems like there's been some technical difficulties. As they stood there, shell-shocked, my phone buzzed. A text from Bowen. Everything's in place, ready when you are. Now, if you'll excuse me, I said, grabbing my purse. I have a meeting with my financial team. Don't wait up, honey. I left them standing in the kitchen, surrounded by broken cookies and shattered schemes. Phase 2 was complete. Time for the real fun to begin. Someone's following me, I said into my phone as I drove home from work. Black SUV, 3 cars back. Been with me since I left the office. Jason hired a PI, Aaron confirmed. I overheard him on the phone this morning. Want me to run the plates? Already did. Registered to Summit Investigations. I checked my rearview mirror again. Amateur hour. At least hire someone who knows how to tail properly. I pulled into the grocery store parking lot, watching the SUV awkwardly try to look inconspicuous 2 rows over. My phone buzzed with a text from Rosalie. Please answer my calls. We need to talk. Your brother's getting desperate, I told Aaron. 7 missed calls today. Rosalie's up to 12. Be careful. He was at my office earlier, asking questions about your meetings there. Perfect, I smiled, grabbing my shopping bag. Time to give our PI friend something interesting to report. I walked into the store, making sure to bump into Bowen, right on schedule. Marley, he called out loudly enough for anyone watching to hear. I was just thinking about you. Bowen, what a surprise! I touched his arm, letting my hand linger. Thank you again for dinner last night. The restaurant was amazing. We hadn't actually had dinner, but the PI didn't know that. My pleasure. Listen. He lowered his voice conspiratorially, but still loud enough to carry. About those documents you left at my place. Right on cue, my phone exploded with texts from Jason. Who the hell is that man? What documents? Where were you last night? I ignored them all, continuing my performance with Bowen until I saw the PI frantically taking photos through the store window. Back in my car, I called Tessa. Show's over. How long until Jason gets the PI's report? Already did, she laughed. He's losing it. Just stormed into Rosalie's house. Aaron's watching them fight through the window. Good. I pulled into our driveway, unsurprised to find Jason's car already there. Time for Act 2. I found him pacing in the kitchen, face red with rage. Who is he? Who? I started unloading groceries. Don't play dumb. The man at the store, the one you had dinner with. Oh, Bowen? I kept my voice casual. Just a friend. Why are you having me followed, Jason? He froze. I'm not. Summit Investigations? I raised an eyebrow. Really? They have terrible reviews on Yelp, by the way. You've been acting strange, he sputtered, moving money around, meeting with lawyers. Speaking of money, I interrupted. How's Rosalie's boat shopping going? Find anything nice at the marina? The color drained from his face. What are you talking about? You know exactly what I'm talking about. I pulled out my phone, showing him the marina photos Aaron had taken. The same day you told me you were at a client meeting. Funny coincidence. You're spying on me? Learned from the best, honey. I started walking upstairs. By the way, your girlfriend's offshore account, the one you've been trying to transfer our money to, it's been frozen. He grabbed my arm, spinning me around. What did you do? Let go of me. My voice was ice. Unless you want assault charges added to the fraud ones. His grip tightened. You vindictive bit. I wouldn't finish that sentence. Bowen's voice cut through the tension. He stood in our doorway, phone recording everything. Let her go, Jason. Jason released me, stepping back. This is my house. Actually, I smiled, rubbing my arm. As of this morning, it's not. Remember that LLC you transferred it to? Turns out there were some irregularities in the paperwork. My lawyers had fun with that. You can't do this, he whispered. I already did. I reached into my bag, pulling out a stack of papers. Divorce papers, bank statements, evidence of fraud, even a copy of that little poison incident at the charity gala. Aaron's been quite helpful. My own brother? His voice cracked. Karma's funny that way. I headed for the door. Oh, and Jason, the PI you hired? He works for me now. Those photos of you and Rosalie? Just more evidence for the court. Where are you going? He called after me. To meet your brother and sister-in-law for dinner. The real estate agent will be here in 20 minutes to change the locks. Don't worry about packing. Most of your stuff is already in storage. I'm sure Rosalie has room for you. Although, I paused, checking my phone. Judging by her latest text, maybe not. I showed him the screen. A message from Rosalie saying she couldn't handle this anymore, that she was done with both of us. As I walked out, I heard him frantically dialing her number, but I already knew she wouldn't answer. She was too busy trying to access the frozen accounts. discovering that her carefully laid plans were crumbling around her. "Ready for the final act?" Bowen asked as we got into his car. I looked back at the house, at Jason's desperate figure through the window. "Oh, we're just getting started." "You did what?" Rosalie's screech echoed through the conference room at Bowen's law office. She stared at the documents spread across the table, her perfectly manicured hands shaking. "I think the technical term is reverse Uno card," I said calmly, watching her face contort with rage. "Every transaction you and Jason made, I matched. Every account you tried to hide, I found. Every lie you told, I documented." Jason sat slumped in his chair, tie loosened, looking like he'd aged 10 years in a week. "This is impossible." "Actually," Bowen interjected, sliding more papers across the table, "it was quite possible, and legal, unlike, say, attempting to poison your wife to prevent her from attending a meeting." "That wasn't," Rosalie started. "Save it." I cut her off. Aaron already provided his statement. The security footage from the restaurant kitchen is particularly interesting. "You bitch," she spat. "We were friends." "Were we?" I leaned forward. "Because friends don't sleep with each other's husbands. Friends don't plot to steal inheritances. And friends definitely don't try to have each other committed to cover their tracks." Jason's head snapped up. "That was your idea," he said to Rosalie. "You said we needed to discredit her. Oh, now you want to play blame game?" Rosalie turned on him. "What about the boat you bought without telling me, or the money you kept for yourself?" I sat back, watching them tear into each other. Tessa, who'd been quietly observing from the corner, caught my eye and smirked. "If we could return to the matter at hand," Bowen interrupted their bickering. "Marley has agreed to not press criminal charges." "How generous," Rosalie sneered. "If you both sign these papers immediately." He pushed forward 2 sets of documents. Full confession, complete separation of assets, and a non-disclosure agreement. "Or what?" Jason challenged. I pulled out my phone, pulling up a video. "Or this goes to the board of your company, and the police, and every social media platform I can find." I pressed play, letting them hear their own voices plotting my financial ruin. "You recorded us?" Rosalie's voice was barely a whisper. "No, you recorded yourselves. Remember that echo device in our bedroom, Jason? The one you got me for Christmas? Turns out it picks up everything, including conversations about poisoning your wife." The color drained from both their faces. "You have 20 minutes to decide," Bowen stated. "Sign or we proceed with criminal charges." "You can't prove," Jason started. "Actually," Aaron's voice came from the doorway as he walked in. "We can. The restaurant's camera footage, bank records, witness statements, including mine. Sign the papers, Jason. It's over." Rosalie grabbed a pen first, her signature angry and sharp across the pages. "I never should have trusted you," she spat at Jason. "Feelings mutual," he muttered, reaching for the second pen. As they signed, I studied them both. These people who'd planned to destroy me, now destroying each other instead. "One more thing," I said as they finished. "Your jobs." They both looked up sharply. "I didn't send anything to your employers, yet. But one wrong move, one attempt at retaliation." I let the threat hang in the air. "You've ruined us enough," Rosalie said, standing up. "I hope you're happy." "Happy?" I laughed. "No, satisfied? Getting there. By the way, that apartment you bought with my money, the keys are with your doorman, along with copies of everything we discussed today, just in case you get any ideas." She stormed out, heels clicking angrily down the hallway. Jason remained seated, staring at his hands. "I did love you once." "No, you loved what I could give you. There's a difference." I stood up, gathering my papers. "The house is sold, by the way. Closed this morning. Your things are in storage. Aaron has the key. Where will I go? Not my problem anymore. I turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and that promotion you were up for? The board meeting's tomorrow. Shame about that anonymous email they'll receive tonight. His face crumpled as the full weight of his actions finally hit him. Outside the office, Tessa hugged me tight. You okay? Better than okay. I watched through the window as Jason buried his face in his hands. Think they've learned their lesson? If not, we have plenty more evidence, Aaron said, patting his briefcase. Speaking of evidence, Bowen joined us. Dinner to celebrate? I know a great place that doesn't serve poisoned food. I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Lead the way, but first, I pulled out my phone, opening my banking app. Time to close some accounts. As we walked out, I heard Jason's muffled sobs through the conference room door. Once that sound would have broken my heart. Now it just confirmed what I already knew. Karma had finally come calling, and she was serving exactly what they deserved. Your house is empty, Rosalie said, standing on my front porch a week later. She looked terrible. Designer clothes replaced by wrinkled jeans, perfect makeup gone, dark circles under her eyes. Not my house anymore, I replied, continuing to load boxes into my car. Sold for well above asking price, actually. Amazing what properties can go for when they're not tied up in fraudulent LLCs. I lost everything, she whispered. My job, my reputation, my savings. Funny how karma works. I closed my trunk. Did you really think you'd get away with it? Jason, she started, got what he deserved? I finished for her. I heard he's living in a motel since you kicked him out. The board meeting went exactly as expected. She wrapped her arms around herself. He lied to me too, you know. Said there was more money, other accounts. There were, but they weren't his to promise you. I checked my watch. If you're here for sympathy, you're wasting your time. I'm here to apologize. I laughed, the sound sharp and bitter. 8 years of friendship. You were my maid of honor. You held my hand at my father's funeral. And the whole time you were planning this? Not the whole time, she protested weakly. It started last year when Jason... Stop. I held up my hand. I don't care when it started. I care that it happened at all. A car pulled into the driveway. Aaron and Tessa, right on schedule. Ready to go? Tessa called out, then spotted Rosalie. Oh, hell no. I'm leaving, Rosalie said quickly, backing away. I needed you to know I'm sorry. Sorry you did it, or sorry you got caught? Aaron asked coldly. She flinched. Both, I guess. She reached into her purse, pulling out an envelope. These are the rest of the account numbers, the ones Jason didn't know about. I transferred everything back. I took the envelope without opening it. Goodbye, Rosalie. We watched her walk away, shoulders hunched, nothing left of the confident woman who'd once been my best friend. You okay? Tessa squeezed my hand. Better than okay. I handed her the envelope. Add these to the evidence file, just in case. Aaron started loading the last few boxes. Jason called again this morning, begging for another chance. Let me guess, he's sorry, he'll change. He never meant to hurt me? Actually, Aaron grinned, he wanted to know if you'd testify on his behalf. Seems he's trying to pin everything on Rosalie. Wow. I shook my head. They really deserve each other. Speaking of deserving, Tessa waggled her eyebrows. Bowen's been asking about you. Stop. But I couldn't help smiling. We're just friends. Friends who've had dinner 3 times this week? Before I could respond, another car pulled up. Jason stepped out, looking as rough as Rosalie had. Marley, please, he called out. Just 5 minutes. The restraining order says otherwise, I reminded him. Unless you want to add violation to your growing list of legal problems? I lost my job today, he said, taking a step forward. Aaron moved between us. Back off, brother. This is between me and my wife. Ex-wife, I corrected. As of this morning, check your email. His face crumpled. You didn't even give me a chance to fight it. Like the chance you gave me before trying to steal everything I had? I walked up to him, keeping just outside arm's reach. The divorce is final. The house is sold. Your stuff is in storage, paid through the end of the month. After that, it's going to auction. I'll tell everyone what you did, he threatened. How you set us up, trapped us. Go ahead, I smiled. Tell them how your wife outsmarted you, how your mistress turned on you, how your own brother helped bring you down. I'm sure it'll make a fascinating story. You've destroyed me, he whispered. No, Jason, you destroyed yourself. I just made sure you couldn't destroy me in the process. My phone buzzed, Bowen calling. I have to take this. Goodbye, Jason. Don't contact me again. As I walked away, I heard Tessa tell him, the moving truck's here. You need to leave. I answered my phone, watching in my rearview mirror as Jason slumped back to his car. Everything okay? Bowen asked. Still on for dinner? Everything's perfect, I replied, looking at the sold sign in front of my former home. And yes to dinner. I'm thinking somewhere new. Fresh start. As I drove away, leaving Jason and Rosalie's broken schemes behind, I felt nothing but peace. They'd tried to write my ending, but I'd rewritten the whole story instead. And this ending? This one was all mine. You're really going through with this? Tessa asked, watching me pack the last box into my new SUV. The house in Portland is perfect, I said. Close enough to visit, far enough for a fresh start. I checked my phone, smiling at Bowen's message about dinner plans. Speaking of fresh starts, Tessa nodded toward my driveway, where Aaron was pulling up with unexpected news written all over his face. You need to see this, he said, handing me his tablet. On the screen was a local news article. Financial fraud investigation leads to multiple arrests. They actually did it, I whispered, scanning the article. They tried to frame each other. According to the story, both Jason and Rosalie had separately gone to the authorities, each trying to pin their schemes on the other. Their competing confessions had triggered a full investigation. That's not all. Aaron swiped to another article. Remember that charity gala? Turns out you weren't their only victim. My mother burst through the front door of Tessa's house, where I'd been staying. Have you seen the news? They're saying 3 other women were poisoned at different events. I know, Mom. I handed her the tablet. Aaron just showed me. The detective wants to talk to you again, she said. They're building a bigger case now. My phone buzzed. An unknown number. Speaking of, Mrs. Webb? A familiar voice said when I answered. Detective Roberts here. We've had some interesting developments. I saw the news, I replied, putting the phone on speaker. How can I help? We need your evidence files, all of them. Seems your documentation could help prove a pattern of behavior. I caught Aaron's eye. Send everything, I mouthed. He nodded, already pulling out his laptop. You'll have everything within the hour, I told the detective. Any chance of real jail time? With multiple victims coming forward, absolutely. The DA's particularly interested in the poisoning angle. After hanging up, I sat heavily on Tessa's porch steps. I never wanted them in jail. I just wanted them to face consequences. They made their choices, Mom said firmly. Actions have consequences. My phone buzzed again. Bowen this time. You okay? Saw the news? Better than okay, I replied. Dinner still on? Actually, he said, I was thinking, Portland has some amazing restaurants. I smiled. Are you inviting yourself on my fresh start? My firm has an office there. Been thinking about transferring anyway. Tessa made exaggerated kissing noises in the background. I swatted at her, trying not to laugh. I'd like that, I told Bowen. The company would be nice. Mom cleared her throat. Speaking of company, she pointed down the street where a familiar figure was approaching. Rosalie in handcuffs, escorted by 2 officers. They were going house to house, apparently investigating the other poisoning cases. Don't, Aaron said as I stood. You don't owe her anything. I know. I walked down to the sidewalk anyway. But I want to see this. Rosalie looked even worse than before. Her eyes met mine, and for a moment I saw a flicker of the friend she used to be. They're investigating the Mitchell woman's case, she said quietly. The one from the summer fundraiser. I nodded. I remember, she nearly died. That was Jason's idea. Her voice cracked. He said we needed practice. Practice? The word tasted bitter. We were friends, Rosalie. Family. I know. She looked down at her cuffed hands. Greed makes monsters of us all. No, I corrected her. Choices make monsters. You chose this. The officers gently pulled her away. I watched them lead her to their car, remembering all the times we'd laughed together, shared secrets, supported each other through hard times. You did the right thing, Mom said, joining me on the sidewalk. All of it. Did I? I turned to her. Sometimes revenge feels an awful lot like justice. Sometimes they're the same thing. She hugged me tight. Now, about this Bowen situation. I laughed, the sound lighter than it had been in months. Let me at least get to Portland first. Fine, she smiled. But I expect regular updates. My phone buzzed one last time. A text from Aaron. Jason had also been arrested, caught trying to flee the state. Ready to go? Tessa asked, dangling my new house keys. I looked around at my family, the real one, the one that had stood by me through everything, at the news vans starting to gather, hungry for the story of betrayal and justice, at my packed car, ready for whatever came next. More than ready, I said, though I think this story's just beginning. The best ones always are, Mom said, kissing my cheek. The best ones always are.
I always imagined my wedding day would be perfect. Instead, I'm standing here in my custom-made dress, watching my future mother-in-law steal my thunder with what has to be the most ridiculous pregnancy announcement I've ever heard. My name is Felicity, and this was supposed to be my moment. Sean and I had planned everything down to the last detail. The garden ceremony, the string quartet, even the exact shade of blue for the hydrangeas. But apparently, Cassandra had other plans. I just couldn't keep it in any longer. She practically squealed into the microphone she'd somehow acquired during the father of the bride's speech. Sean, darling, you're going to be a big brother. The guests collectively gasped. I watched in horror as my perfectly choreographed wedding dissolved into chaos. Sean's face turned an alarming shade of white beside me. Mom, he stammered. What are you talking about? My sister Ruby caught my eye from the bridal party, mouthing, what the actual fuck? I couldn't have agreed more. Cassandra was practically glowing with attention as she continued. Bob and I wanted to wait until after the wedding, but I just couldn't contain my joy any longer. She placed her hand dramatically over her stomach, which I noticed looked suspiciously rounded in her tight-fitting dress. The thing about Cassandra is that she's always been like this, always needing to be the center of attention. When Sean first introduced me to her 3 years ago, she spent the entire dinner talking about her recent divorce from Sean's father and her new relationship with Bob. During our engagement party, she announced she was writing a tell-all book about her life. But this was a new low. I felt Sean's hand trembling in mine. The poor guy looked like he was about to pass out. Around us, whispers rippled through the crowd. I could see my best friend Paige shaking her head in disbelief. That's when something inside me snapped. 3 years of dealing with Cassandra's drama, and I was done. Without missing a beat, I grabbed the microphone from her manicured hands. "Oh my goodness, Cassandra," I exclaimed, matching her enthusiasm. "What a coincidence! Sean and I were planning to announce after the ceremony that we're expecting two." The room fell silent. Sean's head whipped toward me so fast I thought he might get whiplash. "That's right," I continued, watching Cassandra's face fall. "We're going to be one big happy family. Mother and daughter-in-law, pregnant together. Isn't that just magical?" But, Cassandra sputtered, her perfectly lined lips opening and closing like a fish out of water. "You can't be." "Oh, but I am," I said, patting my own stomach. "About 8 weeks along. We wanted to keep it private, but since we're sharing family news," that's when Sean, my wonderful, overwhelmed fiancé, did something I hadn't anticipated. He fainted, just straight up, collapsed next to me, hitting the floor with a thud that echoed through the reception hall. "Sean!" Cassandra shrieked, rushing forward. "Don't worry," I said, kneeling beside him in my wedding dress. "Paige is a nurse." Paige, my best friend, was already there, checking Sean's pulse and putting him in the recovery position. The wedding guests had abandoned their seats and formed a circle around us, phones out, probably already posting on social media. "Give him some space," Ruby commanded, using her teacher voice to shepherd people back. As I knelt there, holding Sean's hand and watching him slowly come around, I caught Cassandra's eye. She was staring at me with a mixture of shock and something else. Calculation, maybe. That's when I knew this was just the beginning. "Felicity," Sean mumbled, as his eyes fluttered open. "Did my mom just say she's pregnant?" "Yes, honey," I replied, stroking his face. "And apparently, so am I." His eyes widened, and for a moment I thought he might faint again. But instead, he just looked at me with complete confusion. "But we haven't." "Shh," I whispered, helping him sit up. "We'll talk later." I could feel Cassandra's eyes boring into my back as the wedding planner, Jonathan, started ushering people toward the reception area, announcing that we'd take a short break before continuing with the ceremony. Ruby appeared at my side, gripping my arm. "Girl, what did you just do?" I watched Cassandra being led away by Bob, her perfect makeup slightly smeared, her moment of triumph thoroughly derailed. "I have no idea," I replied honestly, "but I'm pretty sure I just started a war." Ruby squeezed my arm. "Well, if it's a war she wants, she picked the wrong bride to mess with." Looking at my sister's fierce expression, I couldn't help but smile. This definitely wasn't the wedding day I'd planned, but maybe it was the one I needed. Sometimes you have to fight fire with fire, or in this case, a fake pregnancy with a fake pregnancy. The bridal suite had become a war room. Sean sat on the plush ottoman, holding an ice pack to his head, while I paced back and forth, my wedding dress swishing with each turn. "Let me get this straight," he said, his voice still shaky. "You told everyone you're pregnant to get back at my mother." "No, I told everyone I'm pregnant because your mother chose our wedding day to announce her clearly fabricated pregnancy." I stopped pacing and faced him. "Sean, she's 54. It's not impossible," he mumbled, but I could see doubt creeping into his expression. Ruby burst through the door, followed by Paige. "Coast is clear. Jonathan's keeping the guests entertained with an extended cocktail hour." "How's your head?" Paige asked Sean, switching into nurse mode. "I'm fine," he waved her off. "I'm more concerned about what just happened out there. Felicity, we need to tell everyone the truth." "Like your mother's telling the truth," I shot back. "That's different, is it?" I sat next to him. "Remember last Christmas, when she pretended to have food poisoning because you were spending the holiday with my family? Or when she accidentally scheduled her surgery the same week as our engagement party?" Sean's face darkened. "Those were coincidences." "Oh, honey," Paige interjected. "Those weren't coincidences. That woman has more tricks than a magician's convention." Ruby perched on the armrest beside me. "Speaking of tricks, I just overheard something interesting. Apparently, Cassandra's been visiting some fancy medical spa in the city, the same one that specializes in hormone therapy and, wait for it, cosmetic procedures. What kind of procedures? I leaned forward. The kind that might make someone look. Ruby gestured vaguely at her midsection, expectant. Sean stood up abruptly, dropping the ice pack. This is crazy. You're all crazy. My mother wouldn't. A sharp knock interrupted him. Jonathan poked his head in, his usual calm demeanor slightly frazzled. We have a situation. Cassandra's demanding we continue the ceremony immediately, but she wants to make a few minor adjustments to the seating arrangement and the speeches. Of course she does, I muttered. She also mentioned something about wanting to coordinate baby shower dates, Jonathan added with a grimace. I felt a headache coming on. Tell her we'll be out in 5 minutes. After Jonathan left, Sean turned to me. We need to fix this. Both of us, you and my mother, need to come clean. Sean, I took his hands in mine. I love you, but your mother has been trying to control our relationship from day one. Remember when she showed up unannounced at our apartment at midnight because she had a feeling you were in danger? I was sleeping, he admitted. Exactly. Or when she tried to convince you I was secretly married before because she saw a wedding photo on my Instagram. That was my cousin's wedding, I added. I was a bridesmaid. Okay, maybe she can be a bit intense, Sean conceded. Paige snorted. Intense? A ghost pepper is intense. Your mother is psychological warfare in designer heels. A commotion outside drew our attention. Through the door, we could hear Cassandra's voice getting louder. I just need to speak with my son. It's a medical emergency. Ruby rolled her eyes. Right on cue. I squared my shoulders and smoothed my dress. Sean, I know this isn't ideal, but trust me, sometimes you have to fight manipulation with manipulation. By pretending to be pregnant. By giving her a taste of her own medicine. I touched his cheek gently. I'm not doing this to hurt you. I'm doing this to protect us. Before he could respond, the door burst open. Cassandra stood there, one hand on her suddenly very prominent belly, the other clutching her chest. Sean, darling, I'm feeling faint. The excitement, the baby. I watched my fiancé's face, seeing the familiar worry lines appear, but then something changed. He glanced at me, then back at his mother, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of recognition in his eyes. Mom, he said firmly, the ceremony will continue as planned. No changes. Cassandra's mouth fell open. But, no changes, he repeated, standing straighter. And afterward, we're all going to have a long talk about boundaries. I couldn't hide my smile as Cassandra backed out of the room, looking stunned. Sean turned to me, his expression serious but soft. I'm not happy about this pregnancy story, he said quietly, but maybe it's time someone stood up to her. Ruby clapped her hands. Great. Now that's settled, let's get you two married before anyone else announces they're expecting. I'm looking at you, Paige. Hey. Paige laughed, throwing a tissue box at her. As we prepared to return to the ceremony, I caught my reflection in the mirror. I might have started this game of chicken with Cassandra, but something told me she wasn't going to back down easily. This wedding was just the beginning. The morning after our wedding, I found myself sitting in Paige's kitchen, surrounded by newspaper clippings and old photos she'd somehow managed to dig up overnight. My coffee had gone cold, forgotten in the midst of our impromptu investigation into the Wilson family history. Look at this, Paige said, sliding a yellowed newspaper article across the table. 15 years ago, Cassandra made headlines for disrupting her sister-in-law's charity gala with a dramatic health scare. Let me guess, it turned out to be nothing. Bingo. But by then, all attention had shifted from the charity to her brave recovery. Ruby walked in, balancing 3 fresh cups of coffee. You won't believe what I just found out from Jonathan. Apparently, Cassandra's been calling all the local baby boutiques, setting up private shopping appointments. She's really committing to this charade, I muttered, reaching for my phone as it buzzed with another message from Sean. He'd gone to have breakfast with his mother, trying to smooth things over. There's more, Ruby continued, pulling up a chair. I got curious and called Dad's old law firm. Guess who handled Cassandra's divorce from Sean's father? Who? Aunt Laurel. I nearly spilled my coffee. Our Aunt Laurel. The one who refuses to even talk about the Wilsons. The very same. Ruby leaned forward. And get this. She's willing to talk now. Before I could respond, my phone lit up with a text from Sean. We need to talk. Coming over. 20 minutes later, Sean burst through Paige's front door, looking like he'd aged 10 years over breakfast. She's planning a joint baby shower, he announced, collapsing onto the couch. For next month, she's already booked the country club. Next month? I exchanged alarmed looks with Ruby. That's ambitious. She says she wants to do it before either of us starts showing too much. He ran his hands through his hair. Felicity, this is getting out of hand. Getting, Paige snorted. It got out of hand the moment she hijacked your wedding with her geriatric pregnancy announcement. Has anyone actually seen her medical records? Ruby asked. Or her doctor? Sean shifted uncomfortably. She says Dr. Harrison is handling everything. Dr. Harrison. Paige's eyebrows shot up. The plastic surgeon. A heavy knock at the door made us all jump. Jonathan stood there, looking uncharacteristically nervous. Sorry to interrupt, but you need to see this. He held up his tablet, showing a social media post. Cassandra just announced she's having twins. Twins, we all shouted in unison. It gets better, Jonathan scrolled down. She's tagged Sean's father in the post. Sean bolted upright. My dad, but they haven't spoken in years. I grabbed the tablet, reading the post aloud, overjoyed to announce we're expecting twins. Can't wait to share this blessing with all family members, even those who've been distant. Time to come home, Brian. She's trying to force your father back into the picture, I realized. This isn't just about upstaging our wedding anymore. Sean's phone started ringing, his father's name flashing on the screen. He stared at it like it might explode. Answer it, I urged. Maybe he knows something we don't. Sean stepped into the other room, and we all tried and failed not to eavesdrop on his side of the conversation. Dad, yeah, I saw the post. No, I had no idea she was going to. Wait, what do you mean you have proof? When he returned, his face was ashen. My dad's coming to town. Says he has something we need to see about Mom's pattern of behavior. Pattern? Ruby perked up. Apparently, this isn't the first time she's pulled something like this. Dad mentioned something about documents from their divorce. A letter slid under Paige's door, making us all start. Jonathan retrieved it. A cream-colored envelope addressed to me in elegant handwriting. It's from Aunt Laurel, I said, opening it. My eyes widened as I read. Holy shit! What? Everyone demanded. Aunt Laurel didn't just handle the divorce. She has proof that Cassandra faked a pregnancy back then, too, to try to stop Brian from leaving. Sean sank back into the couch. That's impossible. I would have known. Would you? I asked gently. You were 16, and according to this, she conveniently lost the baby right after your father agreed to a better divorce settlement. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Finally, Ruby spoke up. So what's the plan? I looked at Sean, seeing the hurt and confusion in his eyes, but also a growing resolve. First, I said, we meet with your father and Aunt Laurel. Then, I picked up the tablet with Cassandra's twins announcement. We give your mother exactly what she wants. Attention, just not the kind she's expecting. The baby shower, Paige grinned wickedly. The baby shower, I confirmed. If Cassandra wants to play pregnant, let's see how she handles a spotlight she can't control. You need to tell me the truth right now, Sean demanded, pacing our living room. Are you really pregnant? I set down my tea and met his gaze. No, I'm not. The silence that followed felt heavier than my fake pregnancy belly padding Cassandra had helpfully sent over that morning. I can't believe you lied to me, to everyone. His voice cracked. In front of our entire family. Your mother backed me into a corner. I stood up. What was I supposed to do? Let her hijack our wedding with her obvious lie. So you countered with another lie. He ran his hands through his hair. That makes you just as bad as... The doorbell interrupted our argument. Through the peephole, I saw Cassandra, wearing a fitted dress that emphasized her mysteriously growing bump. Perfect timing, I muttered, opening the door. Darling, Cassandra breezed in, air kissing my cheeks. I brought you some pregnancy-safe tea and the most darling little onesies. She paused, taking in the tension. Oh dear, is everything all right? Morning sickness can be so difficult in these early stages. Mom, what are you doing here? Sean asked wearily. Can't a mother check on her pregnant son and daughter-in-law? She settled onto our couch, arranging her dress to highlight her belly. Especially when we're all in this together. The doorbell rang again. This time, it was Ruby, followed closely by Paige. Oh good, the gang's all here. Cassandra smiled tightly. I was just telling Sean and Felicity about the wonderful prenatal yoga instructor I've found. She specializes in geriatric pregnancies. Geriatric? Paige raised an eyebrow. Isn't that for pregnancies over 35? Well, yes. Cassandra waved dismissively. But she's very experienced with unique situations. Speaking of unique situations, Ruby interjected. We ran into the most interesting person at the coffee shop this morning. Brian. The color drained from Cassandra's face. Brian. My Brian. Your ex-husband Brian, I corrected. Sean's father, Brian. The one you tagged in your twins' announcement. He's here? Cassandra's hand fluttered to her throat. Right here, came a deep voice from the doorway. Brian stood there, looking exactly like an older version of Sean, holding a manila envelope. What's in the envelope, Dad? Sean asked quietly. Evidence, Brian replied, stepping into the room. Medical records, legal documents, and some very interesting correspondence from 1998. Cassandra jumped up with surprising agility for someone supposedly carrying twins. Those are private. We're private, Brian corrected. Until you dragged me into your latest performance by tagging me in that ridiculous post. How dare you? Cassandra's voice rose. I'm carrying precious new life. Like you were carrying precious new life when you tried to stop our divorce? Brian cut in. Those records show you were never pregnant then, Cassandra, just like you're not pregnant now. The room fell silent. Sean looked between his parents, his face a mask of confusion and dawning realization. Mom, his voice sounded small, like a child's. Is this true? Of course not, Cassandra protested. Your father is just jealous that I've found happiness with Bob. Bob left town 3 days ago, Paige interrupted. I saw him at the airport. He seemed pretty surprised to hear about your pregnancy announcement. Cassandra's face contorted. She spun to face me. This is your doing. You've turned everyone against me. You and your perfect little wedding, and your perfect little pregnancy. I'm not pregnant, I said clearly. I lied because you lied first. Ha! Cassandra pointed triumphantly. See, she admits she's a liar. Yes, I agreed calmly. I told one lie, at our wedding. To counter your lie, but you've been lying for decades, haven't you? Brian opened the envelope, spreading documents across the coffee table. Medical records, legal papers, old photographs, a paper trail of deception spanning years. It's over, Cassandra, Brian said quietly. Stop before you hurt Sean any more than you already have. Sean picked up one of the documents, his hands shaking. You faked a miscarriage to get a better divorce settlement? Sweetheart, I can explain. No. Sean cut her off. No more explanations, no more lies. He turned to me. I'm sorry I got angry about your lie. I understand now why you did it. Cassandra looked around the room, her carefully constructed facade crumbling. This isn't fair. I'm your mother. Yes, you are, Sean said. But that doesn't give you the right to manipulate everyone around you. I think you should leave, I suggested firmly. Cassandra gathered her designer purse, her movements jerky and uncertain. At the door, she turned back. This isn't over. Actually, Brian held up the envelope. It is, unless you want these documents to become very public. After she left, Sean collapsed onto the couch, staring at the evidence of his mother's decades of deception. What do we do now? He asked. Ruby picked up one of the onesies Cassandra had brought. Well, first we return these, then we start planning that baby shower. After all, she did book the country club. You can't be serious, Sean started, then saw our expressions. Oh God, you are serious. Dead serious, I confirmed. Your mother wants attention. Let's give her exactly what she deserves. The country club's private dining room buzzed with activity as Brian shared more details about Cassandra's past schemes. We sat around a large table, empty coffee cups scattered between stacks of old photos and documents. She once convinced my entire board of directors that she had a rare tropical disease, Brian explained, sliding another photo across the table, just to stop me from accepting a job in Seattle. That's her in the hospital bed? Ruby squinted at the image, with what looks like grocery store makeup to appear sickly. Bingo, Brian nodded. Cost me the job of a lifetime. Sean picked up another document, and this one, from my high school graduation. Ah, the mysterious fainting spell that prevented you from going on that summer trip with your friends. Brian's expression darkened. The one where you were planning to visit colleges without her input. Jesus, Sean muttered. How did I never see it? Jonathan, who'd been quietly taking notes, looked up from his tablet. Because she's good at what she does. Speaking of which, she's just posted another pregnancy update on social media. We all crowded around to look. There was Cassandra, posed in what appeared to be a professional photo shoot, cradling her bump in a flowing maternal dress. Blessed with twins at 54, Paige read aloud, rolling her eyes. Age is just a number when miracles happen. Give me a break. Wait, I pointed at the screen. Look at the location tag. Dr. Harrison's Medical Spa, Ruby read. Isn't that the place that specializes in cosmetic procedures? Sean finished, including prosthetic pregnancy bellies for actresses and models. The door swung open, and Aunt Laurel strode in, carrying a thick folder. Sorry I'm late, had to dig these out of storage. She dropped the folder on the table. Everything from Cassandra's divorce proceedings, including some very interesting medical testimonies. Laurel, Brian stood, extending his hand. It's been a while. 20 years, give or take a few lies, she replied dryly, shaking his hand. Now shall we plan this baby shower? About that, Jonathan pulled up his event planning software. Cassandra's already sent out invitations to half the town. Local press included. Perfect, I smiled. The bigger the audience, the better. Felicity, Sean touched my arm. Are you sure about this? She's still my mother. Which is exactly why we need to do this, I said gently. She needs help, Sean. Real help. Not enablers. I agree, Brian added. I enabled her behavior for years, and look where it got us. Paige's phone buzzed. Guys, you need to see this. Bob just posted something interesting. We huddled around her phone. There was Bob, clearly on a beach somewhere, with his arm around a young woman. New beginnings in Bali with my soulmate, Ruby read. Sorry, Cassandra, but I can't be part of your games anymore. P.S. We both know you're not pregnant. Well, that's going to complicate her story, Jonathan mused. Save that post, I instructed. We'll need it for the shower. Speaking of the shower, Laurel opened her folder. I have some ideas for the guest list, starting with every person she's ever manipulated. That could be a long list, Brian warned. Exactly, Laurel smiled wickedly. And I've kept in touch with most of them. Sean's phone lit up with a text. Mom wants to meet for dinner tonight, says she needs to discuss the shower details. Perfect, I said. Tell her yes, but we'll make it a group dinner. And I'll make sure to book a table near the windows, Jonathan added. Better lighting for when everything comes to light. You're all enjoying this a bit too much, Sean observed. But I could see the ghost of a smile playing at his lips. Maybe, Ruby admitted. But your mother's been scripting everyone's lives for decades. Time for her to face the critics. There's one more thing, Brian said, pulling out a final document. The medical records from her first fake pregnancy, the one she used to trap me into marriage. Sean's head snapped up. What? That's right, Brian confirmed. Our entire marriage was based on a lie, one that took me years to uncover. The room fell silent as the weight of this revelation sank in. The shower's in 3 days, Jonathan reminded us. Whatever we're going to do, we need to do it fast. I looked around the table at our unlikely alliance. My family, Sean's father, our friends, all united in exposing a lifetime of manipulation. 3 days is plenty, I said, picking up one of Cassandra's ultrasound photos, clearly photoshopped. After all, she's given us more than enough material for one hell of a baby shower presentation. To the mother of all revelations, Ruby raised her coffee cup in a mock toast. As everyone laughed, I caught Sean's eye. He nodded slightly, finally fully on board. Cassandra had no idea what was coming, but she was about to learn that karma, like her fake pregnancy, had perfect timing. The restaurant's private dining room crackled with tension as Cassandra swept in, 45 minutes late, sporting an even larger baby bump than she'd had 2 days ago. Traffic was absolutely dreadful, she announced, then froze at the sight of our full table. I wasn't expecting a crowd. Sit down, Mom, Sean said firmly. We need to talk. About the shower, she perched delicately on the only available chair, directly across from Brian. I've already handled everything. The caterer, the decorations, the press. The press, I interrupted. For a baby shower. Well, naturally. It's not every day a mother and daughter-in-law experience pregnancy together. She beamed at me. Speaking of which, darling, you're barely showing. Are you eating enough? Cut the act, Cassandra. Brian's voice was quiet but firm. We know about Dr. Harrison. Her smile flickered. My obstetrician? What about him? Funny, Ruby chimed in, sliding her phone across the table. Because according to his website, Dr. Harrison specializes in cosmetic surgery and prosthetic pregnancy suits for the entertainment industry. I don't know what you're implying. Bob called me, Sean cut in, right before he posted about his new life in Bali. Cassandra's hand flew to her throat. He what? Told us everything, I added. About how you planned this whole thing when you found out he was leaving you for someone else. That's ridiculous. She grabbed her water glass with trembling hands. I'm carrying twins. Like you were carrying my sibling during the divorce? Sean asked. Or should I say, pretending to carry? The color drained from Cassandra's face. Who told you about that? I did, Brian said, opening his folder, along with evidence of every other lie you've told over the years. Those records are private. She tried to snatch the folder, but Brian pulled it back. Not anymore. Not since you decided to tag me in your latest performance. Jonathan cleared his throat. The guest list for the shower has grown quite interesting. We've heard back from almost everyone, including your sister-in-law, whose charity event you ruined in 2008, and your former best friend, whose wedding you interrupted with your terminal illness diagnosis. Paige added. That was different. Cassandra's voice rose. I was going through a difficult time. You're always going through a difficult time, Sean said wearily. Always at exactly the moment when someone else is happy. How dare you? She stood up, her prosthetic bump shifting noticeably. I'm your mother. Yes, you are, Sean replied, which is why we're giving you a choice. I pulled out an envelope and slid it across the table. Inside is the name and number of Dr. Peters. She's an excellent therapist who specializes in personality disorders. You think I need therapy? Cassandra laughed shrilly. Option 2, Brian continued, is we go ahead with the shower as planned, with a few minor adjustments to the program. What adjustments? Her eyes narrowed. A comprehensive presentation, Ruby explained cheerfully, featuring 20 years of your greatest hits, photos, documents, medical records, even that video of you practicing your feint at the charity gala. You wouldn't dare. Try us, I challenged. You've spent years manipulating everyone around you. It stops now. Cassandra's eyes darted around the table, looking for an ally and finding none. Her hand unconsciously went to her fake bump, which had shifted noticeably to the left. Sean, she pleaded, You can't let them do this to your own mother. I'm doing this because you're my mother, he replied. Get help, Mom. Real help. The waiter chose that moment to appear with menus. Cassandra grabbed her purse, standing so abruptly, her chair toppled backward. This isn't over, she hissed. Actually, Aunt Laurel spoke for the first time. It is. The shower's in 2 days. You have until tomorrow at noon to call Dr. Peters, or we proceed as planned. With press coverage, Jonathan added helpfully. As requested. We watched as Cassandra stormed out, her exit somewhat undermined by her crooked prosthetic bump. Well, Paige broke the silence. That went about as well as expected. You think she'll call the therapist? Ruby asked. No, Sean and Brian answered simultaneously. Then we proceed with Plan B. I picked up my menu. But first, I'm starving. Anyone else want to split the calamari? As we ordered dinner, I noticed Sean looking at his phone. Everything okay? He showed me the screen. A text from Cassandra. You'll regret this, all of you. Sounds like a threat. Ruby peered over my shoulder. Sounds like someone who's cornered, Brian corrected. And that's when Cassandra is most dangerous. Let her try something, I said, squeezing Sean's hand. We have truth on our side. Plus video evidence, Jonathan added, waving his tablet. Lots and lots of video evidence. As our appetizers arrived, I couldn't shake the feeling that Cassandra wasn't done yet. But this time, we were ready for whatever performance she had planned. The country club ballroom buzzed with anticipation. Cassandra had outdone herself with the decorations. Twin-themed everything, from the matching blue and pink balloon arches to the 2 times the blessing banner stretched across the stage. She didn't call Dr. Peters, Sean confirmed, checking his phone one last time. Of course she didn't. Ruby adjusted the projector screen. That would require admitting she needs help. Guests began filtering in, many of them familiar faces from Cassandra's past. Her former best friend Margaret, who'd lost her husband to cancer, while Cassandra faked her own terminal diagnosis. Sarah, the sister-in-law, whose charity event she'd hijacked. Even Bob's ex-wife, looking particularly pleased to be there. The press is here, Jonathan whispered, nodding toward a cluster of local reporters. And you won't believe who Cassandra invited as her personal photographer. Who? My cousin Tony, the same one who caught her practicing fake fainting spells on video. I couldn't help but smile. Perfect. The room fell silent as Cassandra made her grand entrance. She'd somehow acquired an even larger prosthetic bump, wrapped in a designer maternity dress that probably cost more than my car. Welcome, everyone, she beamed, one hand placed dramatically on her stomach. I'm so blessed to share this magical day with. Sorry I'm late, Aunt Laurel's voice cut through the room. She strode in, followed by a distinguished-looking woman in a lab coat. Dr. Harrison was kind enough to join us. Cassandra's face went pale. Dr. Harrison. Yes, though I'm a bit confused, the doctor said loudly. You've been telling people I'm your obstetrician, but I'm actually a cosmetic surgeon, one who specializes in prosthetic pregnancy, suits for film and television. The room erupted in whispers. Cassandra's hand clutched her fake bump. I don't know what you're talking about. My real doctor is non-existent. Brian stepped forward. Just like your pregnancy. How dare you? Cassandra's voice rose. I'm carrying twins. No, you're carrying silicone, Dr. Harrison corrected. In fact, that's my company's latest model, though you seem to have adjusted it incorrectly. It's sliding to the left. Camera flashes went off as Cassandra frantically tried to adjust her slipping prosthetic. Jonathan, I nodded. Start the presentation. The lights dimmed, and the projector flickered to life. On screen appeared the title, A History of Deception, The Cassandra Chronicles. Stop this immediately, Cassandra shrieked, but her voice was drowned out by gasps as the first video played. Her practicing fainting spells before the charity gala. And here, Ruby narrated, we have medical records from 1998 showing no pregnancy during her divorce proceedings, despite her claims. That's private medical information. Cassandra lunged for the podium, but Sean blocked her path. Like the private medical information you've been spreading about your fake pregnancy, he asked quietly. The presentation continued, each slide revealing another layer of manipulation. Photos of her miraculous recovery from her fake terminal illness, documents proving she'd lied about various medical conditions to manipulate events, Bob's social media post from Bali declaring her current pregnancy a fraud. "You're all just jealous." Cassandra's voice cracked. "Jealous of my happiness, my miracle pregnancy." Her dramatic gesture caused the prosthetic bump to shift completely sideways. In her panic to adjust it, the entire thing slipped out from under her dress, falling to the floor with a soft thud. The room went silent. Then Margaret started laughing. Soon others joined in, years of pent-up frustration, releasing in waves of cathartic laughter. "This is assault," Cassandra screamed, backing toward the door. "I'll sue all of you." "For what?" Aunt Laurel stepped forward, exposing the truth. "Please, do sue us. I'd love to present all this evidence in court." "Sean," Cassandra pleaded, "tell them to stop. I'm your mother." "Yes, you are." Sean's voice was gentle but firm. "Which is why we did this. You need help, Mom. Real help." "I don't need anything except loyal family," she pointed at me. "This is all your fault. You turned my son against me." "No, Mom." Sean took my hand. "Your lies turned everyone against you." Dr. Peters emerged from the crowd. "My offer still stands, Cassandra. We can start sessions whenever you're ready." Cassandra looked around the room, at the reporters taking notes, at her former victims finally seeing justice, at her own prosthetic belly lying sadly on the floor. "This isn't over," she whispered, but her voice lacked its usual conviction. "Actually, I picked up the fake bump and held it out to her. It is. The question is, do you want to end it with dignity and get help? Or should we continue sharing your greatest hits?" For a moment, I thought I saw something real in her eyes. Fear, maybe, or recognition. But then she turned and fled, leaving her fake pregnancy behind, along with the last shreds of her credibility. "Well," Ruby broke the silence, "I guess this means we can serve the cake now." The tension broke as people laughed, the party transforming from a fake baby shower into something like a celebration of truth. "Think she'll actually get help this time?" Sean asked quietly. "I don't know," I admitted, "but at least she can't hurt anyone else with her lies anymore." The sunset painted the beach in soft oranges and pinks as Sean and I finally had the wedding reception we deserved. No drama, no fake pregnancies, just us and our real family celebrating under the stars. "I still can't believe you pulled this off," Sean said, pulling me closer as we swayed to the music. "A complete do-over. Thank Jonathan." I nodded toward our wedding planner, who was busy arranging floating lanterns along the shoreline. He insisted we deserved a drama-free celebration. Ruby appeared with 2 champagne glasses. "Speaking of drama, guess who just checked into Silver Pines Rehabilitation Center? Mom actually did it?" Sean stopped dancing. "According to Brian, she had a breakdown after the shower. Finally admitted she needs help." Ruby handed us the glasses. "Dr. Peters is handling her treatment personally." Paige joined us, kicking off her sandals. "Don't forget the best part. She's agreed to make public apologies to everyone she manipulated. Starting with you two," Brian added, approaching with Aunt Laurel, "though she'll have to wait until she's completed her first month of therapy." "To new beginnings," Aunt Laurel raised her glass. "And to karma finally catching up. And to no more fake pregnancies," Ruby added with a wink. The fairy lights strung across the beach pavilion twinkled as night fell. Our guests gathered around tables laden with food, sharing stories and laughter. Real laughter, not the nervous kind that had filled our first reception. "May I have everyone's attention?" Jonathan tapped his glass. "It's time for the father of the groom's speech." Brian stood, looking more relaxed than I'd ever seen him. When Sean first told me he was getting married, I worried. Not about Felicity, she's perfect for him. I worried that history would repeat itself, that manipulation and lies would poison another generation. He paused, looking at Sean. But then I watched my son do something I never had the courage to do: stand up to the manipulation. And I watched my daughter-in-law do something even braver. She fought back with truth. "Here's to fighting back," Margaret called from her table, raising her glass. "To truth," several voices echoed. "But most importantly," Brian continued, "here's to breaking cycles, to recognizing toxic patterns, and having the courage to end them." Sean, Felicity, you've shown us all what real love looks like. It looks like honesty, even when it's hard. It looks like standing together, even when it means standing up to family. I squeezed Sean's hand as Brian finished. "To the happy couple, may your life together be filled with real joy, real love, and absolutely no fake medical conditions." The crowd laughed and cheered. As the music resumed, Sean pulled me aside, near the water's edge. "I got something in the mail today," he said, pulling out an envelope. "From Mom. Do you want to read it?" He nodded, unfolding the letter. "Dear Sean and Felicity, I'm learning that sorry isn't enough. Actions matter more than words. I'm doing the work now, really doing it. Dr. Peters is helping me understand why I needed attention so desperately that I hurt the people I love. I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope someday to earn back your trust. With real love, Mom." "That actually sounds genuine," I said, surprised. Dr. Peters added a note confirming Mom wrote this herself. "No manipulation tactics." Sean folded the letter carefully. "It's a start." Ruby's voice carried across the beach. Time for the lantern release. We joined our guests by the water's edge, each holding a paper lantern. Jonathan had arranged them in a heart shape, a much better surprise than any fake pregnancy announcement. "Make a wish," Sean whispered as we lit our lantern together. "I wish." "Don't say it out loud," Ruby interrupted. "Bad luck." As our lantern joined the others floating up into the night sky, I looked around at our real family. Ruby and Paige arguing about proper wish-making protocol. Brian and Aunt Laurel sharing knowing smiles. Jonathan directing the photographer to capture the perfect shot. "You know what?" Sean said softly. "I think we're going to be okay." "Better than okay," I corrected. "We're going to be real. No more fake anything." Although, he grinned, "you did make a pretty convincing pregnant woman." "Don't even joke about that," Ruby called out, "or I'm telling everyone about the time you fainted at the wedding." As laughter erupted around us, I watched the lanterns drift higher, their light merging with the stars. Sometimes the best endings aren't about perfect closure. They're about honest new beginnings. "Ready to start our real life together?" Sean asked. I kissed him under the starlit sky, surrounded by truth and genuine love. "I thought you'd never ask."
The call came at 2 a.m., my daughter's voice cracking through the speaker. "Mom, I have nowhere to go. He kicked me out." My name is Summer, and in that moment, my world shifted. I'd been dreading this call ever since Iris married Jeremiah 2 years ago. Mother's intuition, they call it. I knew that smug smile of his was hiding something dark. "I'm coming to get you. Where are you?" I was already pulling on my boots, phone pressed between my ear and shoulder. "The Starbucks on 5th. She was trying not to cry. I could hear it in her breathing, that careful control she'd learned from years of dance recitals and public speaking. "Stay there. 20 minutes. The streets were empty as I drove, streetlights casting long shadows across the pavement. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. I found her huddled in a corner of the coffee shop, a single duffel bag at her feet. Her mascara had left dark trails down her cheeks. "Baby girl," I whispered, pulling her into my arms. She smelled like rain and desperation. "He said I was nothing without him," she mumbled into my shoulder. "That I'd never make it on my own. That everything I have is because of him." The fury rose in my chest like a tide. "Tell me what happened." I found messages on his phone. "He's been seeing someone from work." When I confronted him, he laughed. Actually laughed, Mom. Said I should be grateful for everything he's given me. Then he told me to get out. My phone buzzed. A text from Ava. Is she okay? I can come over. I typed back quickly. Got her. Come tomorrow. The drive home was quiet, broken only by Iris's occasional sniffles. I watched her from the corner of my eye, seeing shadows of myself 20 years ago. The same broken spirit, the same shame. But I had something now that I didn't have then. Power. At home, I made her chamomile tea, the same way I did when she had nightmares as a child. She curled up on my couch, looking so young in her oversized sweater. You can stay as long as you need, I said, sitting beside her. But there's something I need to tell you. She looked up, those green eyes so much like mine. What is it? Remember that summer I worked extra shifts at the diner, when you were 6? She nodded slowly. You were never home. Ava was so little, we stayed with Aunt Regina a lot. I wasn't just working at the diner. I took a deep breath. I made an investment. A friend had this startup idea, something about cloud computing. I put everything I had into it, sold my car, took out a loan. Everyone said I was crazy. Mom, what are you saying? That company is worth billions now. I own 8% of Tech Cloud Solutions. The teacup slipped from her hands, spilling across the carpet. Neither of us moved to clean it up. But you still live in this house. You drive a Honda. I kept it quiet. After what happened with your father, I learned that sometimes the best power is the one nobody knows you have. I reached for her hand. And now it's time to use it. I don't understand. My phone buzzed again. Regina. Documents are ready, meeting tomorrow? You're going to understand soon enough, I said, squeezing her hand. Jeremiah thinks he can break you because he controls the money. He thinks that makes him powerful. I smiled, remembering Collins's words from all those years ago. Sometimes the best revenge is becoming exactly what they said you couldn't be. Mom, you're scaring me a little. Don't be scared, baby. Be excited. Tomorrow, we're going to show Jeremiah exactly what you're worth without him. I pulled her close, feeling her tears soaking into my shirt. And trust me, it's going to be a lot more than he ever imagined. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. What are you planning? Let's just say I've been waiting for the right moment to help you spread your wings. I stood up, finally moving to clean up the spilled tea. Get some sleep. Tomorrow, we're meeting Regina and Collins. It's time to remind certain people that karma has perfect aim. As I tucked her into the guest bed later, just like when she was little, I couldn't help but smile. Jeremiah thought he was dealing with a helpless young wife and her middle-class mother. He had no idea what was coming. Sometimes the best stories are the ones where the villain never sees the ending coming until it's too late. Regina's office always reminded me of a movie set, all glass, chrome, and authority. She stood as we entered, her designer suit perfectly pressed despite the early hour. Summer, she smiled, then turned to Iris. Oh, honey. She wrapped my daughter in a hug before leading us to her conference room. Where's Collins? I asked, settling into one of the leather chairs. Running late. Traffic. Regina spread documents across the table. But we can start. Iris, how much do you know about what your mother's planning? Just that she has shares in Tech Cloud. Iris fidgeted with her sleeve. I still can't believe it. The door burst open and Eva rushed in, her pink hair a beacon of energy. Sorry I'm late. Had to dodge Jeremiah outside my apartment. He's looking for you, Iris. My stomach clenched. What did he want? To talk things through. I told him to shove it. Eva dropped into the chair next to her sister, grabbing her hand. You should have seen him, all dressed up in his stupid designer suit, acting like he's doing Iris a favor by wanting her back. Regina cleared her throat. Let's focus on what matters. Summer, you're sure about this? Absolutely. I nodded toward the papers. I want to transfer half my shares to Iris. Mom, no! Iris straightened. That's your money, your security. Actually, Collins's voice came from the doorway. Your mother's other half is still worth more than most people see in a lifetime. He strode in, looking exactly like the tech CEO he was in his casual blazer and jeans. The company's value doubled last quarter. Regina pulled out a calculator. At current market value, the transfer would make Iris worth approximately $47 million, Collins finished. The room went silent. Eva's mouth hung open. Iris gripped the table edge like she might faint. That's That's impossible, Iris whispered. That's technology stocks for you, Collins grinned. Your mother was one of our first investors, believed in us when nobody else would. But the paperwork needs to be perfect, Regina interrupted. Jeremiah might try to claim part of it in the divorce. No, he won't, I said firmly, because this transfer happened before any divorce proceedings. Right, Regina? She smiled that shark-like smile I loved. Exactly. And I've backdated everything appropriately. Completely legal. Just strategic. Ava bounced in her seat. Oh my God, Iris. You're going to be richer than him. This is better than any revenge fantasy I've ever had. It's not about revenge, I said, even though part of me knew that wasn't entirely true. It's about making sure my daughter never feels powerless again. Collins leaned forward. The press release goes out tomorrow. Tech Cloud Solutions announces new major shareholder. We'll handle it delicately, but Jeremiah will see it, Iris finished, a small smile playing at her lips. He'll see it while eating his morning bagel, Eva cackled. I want to be there when he chokes on it. Regina pushed the papers toward Iris. Are you ready for this? It's not just money, it's responsibility, publicity, power. Iris picked up the pen, her hand trembling slightly. Will you help me, all of you? Every step of the way, I promised. Then yes. She signed her name with surprising steadiness. I'm ready. One more thing, Collins added, sliding over a business card. I know a fantastic real estate agent. Let's get you a place of your own, something with good security. Eva squealed. Ooh, can I help decorate? Please tell me we're going for modern minimalist just to spite Jeremiah's Victorian obsession. For the first time since that 2 a.m. call, Iris laughed. Really laughed. Actually, I was thinking Art Deco. Perfect, Regina smiled. Now, let's talk about the press strategy. Iris, you'll need media training. My phone buzzed. A text from Jeremiah. Summer, tell Iris to stop being childish and come home. This is embarrassing. I showed it to Regina, who smirked. Oh, he has no idea what embarrassing feels like. Yet. As the others discussed interview techniques and investment strategies, I watched my daughter. Her spine was straightening, her voice growing stronger with each passing minute. The broken girl from last night was transforming before my eyes. Collins caught my eye and nodded slightly. He understood. He'd seen the same transformation in me 2 decades ago. Sometimes the best way to heal isn't just to survive, but to thrive so spectacularly that the past becomes nothing but a stepping stone. Mom? Iris's voice pulled me back. Thank you. Not just for this, but for showing me what strength really looks like. I squeezed her hand, feeling Eva's arms wrap around us both. Just remember, I said softly, the best revenge isn't just success, it's success with grace. But looking at Jeremiah's text again, I had to admit, the success part was going to be pretty satisfying too. The doorbell rang at exactly 7:30 p.m. I knew it was Jeremiah before I opened the door, only he would show up at dinner time expecting the world to accommodate his schedule. Where is she? He didn't wait for an invitation, trying to push past me into the house. I blocked his path. Not here. Don't lie to me, Summer. His perfectly tailored suit couldn't hide the rage simmering beneath his polished exterior. Her car's in your driveway. And you're trespassing on my property. I kept my voice steady, remembering Collins's warning about staying calm and documenting everything. My phone was already recording in my pocket. I know what you're doing, he snarled, stepping closer, filling her head with ideas about independence. She needs me. She's nothing without... Careful, I interrupted. You might want to think very carefully about your next words. He laughed, that same dismissive laugh Iris had described. Or what? You'll call the police? On me? Do you know who I am in this town? Do you know who I am? That threw him for a moment. I saw uncertainty flicker across his face. You're a waitress who got lucky with a house inheritance, he sneered, recovering. Don't pretend. Mom? Eva's voice came from behind me. Everything okay? Regina's on the phone, wants to know if we should call security. Jeremiah's face reddened. You've got her sister involved now, too. This is a private matter between me and my wife. Soon-to-be ex-wife, Eva shot back. And unlike you, we actually care about Iris. This is ridiculous. He pulled out his phone. I'm calling my lawyer. Good idea, I smiled. I'm sure Pierce would love to explain tomorrow's news to you early. That stopped him cold. What news? You'll find out soon enough. I started closing the door. Now get off my property before I press charges for harassment. This isn't over, he growled, but he was already backing away. Tell Iris she's making a huge mistake. The only mistake she made was marrying you, Eva called after him. Once he was gone, I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Eva hugged me tight. That was badass, Mom. My phone buzzed. Colin's calling. Summer, security cameras caught everything. Want me to send a team to watch the house? No need, I replied, watching Jeremiah's car disappear down the street. But save that footage. Already done. How's Iris holding up? At the new apartment with Regina, preparing for tomorrow. I closed the front door, double-checking the locks. Remember when we first met? When I was just a waitress with a crazy idea about investing in your startup? He chuckled. You weren't just a waitress. You were the only person who read my entire business plan and asked actual intelligent questions. That's why I offered you shares instead of just taking your money. Jeremiah just called me a waitress who got lucky. Well, Collins's voice hardened. He's about to learn how wrong he is. The press release goes live at 9 a.m. Regina's got 3 interviews lined up for Iris next week. The story of a young woman breaking free and becoming a tech industry power player? The media's going to love it. Eva, who was listening on speaker, grinned. Can we please record his reaction when he sees it? Actually, Collins said, I have something better. My assistant just forwarded me an interesting email. Seems Jeremiah's been embezzling from his firm. Not much, but enough to raise eyebrows if anyone were to look closely. My stomach dropped. Collins, no, we're not going there. Mom's right, Eva said. We need to be better than him. Fine, Collins sighed, but I'm keeping the information just in case. After hanging up, I found myself staring at an old photo on my wall, Iris at her wedding, beaming up at Jeremiah. She looked so hopeful, so certain of her future. My phone buzzed again, a text from Jeremiah. You have no idea what you're starting. Back off now, or everyone will know what really happened in Seattle 15 years ago. Eva read the text over my shoulder. Mom? What's he talking about? I felt the blood drain from my face. Nothing. An old story. It doesn't matter. But my hands were shaking as I typed a response to Collins. We need to talk. About Seattle. Eva touched my arm. Mom, you're scaring me. It's nothing, I repeated, but even I didn't believe it anymore. Just old ghosts. My phone lit up with Iris's face. Mom, Regina just showed me the final press release. Are you sure about this? Once it goes public? I'm sure, I said, pushing Seattle to the back of my mind. Are you? Yes, she said firmly. I'm ready to show him who I really am. I ended the call, trying to ignore the growing knot in my stomach. Tomorrow would change everything. I just hoped the past stayed where it belonged. But Jeremiah's text glowed ominously on my screen, a reminder that some secrets refused to stay buried. The news broke like a tsunami. By 9:15 a.m., Iris's phone wouldn't stop ringing, and my social media was flooded with friend requests from people I hadn't heard from in decades. Look at this. Eva thrust her phone at us over breakfast in Iris's new penthouse apartment. Unknown waitress's daughter becomes tech industry power player overnight. They're calling you a modern Cinderella story, sis. Iris barely looked up from her laptop. Regina says to ignore the press for now. Focus on the shareholders' meeting next week. Smart girl, Collins said, walking in with fresh coffee. But you might want to look at this one. He turned on the TV, where Jeremiah's face filled the screen. My wife is going through a difficult time, he was saying to a reporter outside his office. These recent business developments are concerning, and I'm worried about her mental state. I just want her to come home so we can work things out. Eva threw a muffin at the TV. Mental state? Are you kidding me? It's a classic move, Regina said, entering with a stack of papers. Trying to paint her as unstable to discredit her, but we're ready for that. She handed Iris a document. Your statement for the press conference this afternoon. Press conference? I asked, alarmed. Mom, we talked about this, Iris said gently. I need to show I'm capable and confident. No hiding. My phone buzzed. Another text from Jeremiah. Last chance, Summer. Seattle. Think about it. Collins caught my expression. Everything okay? Fine, I lied, deleting the message. Just nervous about the press conference. The elevator dinged and Pierce, our lawyer, strode in. We've got a problem. Jeremiah's filing for an emergency hearing, claims Iris is being manipulated and demands a psychiatric evaluation. He what? Iris stood so quickly her chair toppled backward. It won't stick, Regina assured her. But we need to respond quickly. Pierce, draft a counter motion. Eva, get those photos of Jeremiah threatening your mom last night. Collins, we need the security footage. Already uploading, Collins nodded. My phone rang, an unknown number. When I answered, the voice was familiar, though I hadn't heard it in 15 years. Summer? We need to talk about Seattle. I stepped onto the balcony, closing the door behind me. Marcus, how did you... Jeremiah's people contacted me. They're digging. If this gets out... It won't. I cut him off. That case was sealed. Cases can be unsealed. People can talk. Are you sure you want to do this to your daughter? I watched through the glass as Iris practiced her statement, standing tall and confident. I'm not doing anything to her. I'm helping her. Like you helped me? His voice turned bitter. Just think about it, Summer. Some secrets should stay buried. The call ended. When I turned around, Collins was watching me. Seattle? He asked quietly. Don't, I warned. Inside, Iris was addressing an imaginary crowd. Yes, I'm young. Yes, this is sudden. But I've earned my place here, and I intend to use this position to help other women find their voice and their value. Eva cheered. Perfect. Jeremiah's going to lose it when he sees this. As if on cue, the elevator dinged again. This time, Jeremiah himself stepped out. Security breach, Collins snapped into his phone. Penthouse level. Get out. Regina moved toward him, but Jeremiah held up his hands. I just want to talk. Iris, baby, please. Whatever they're telling you. They're telling me the truth. Iris's voice was steady. That I'm worth more than your mind games. That I deserve better than your lies. Lies? He laughed that horrible laugh again. Ask your mother about lies. Ask her about Seattle. Ask her what really happened to... That's enough. I stepped between them. Security's on their way up. Leave now or leave in handcuffs. He straightened his tie. Fine, but this isn't over. The hearing's tomorrow at 9. Hope you're ready to explain everything, Summer. Everything. After he left, the room was silent. Eva looked between Iris and me. Mom? What was he talking about? Nothing, I said automatically, but Iris shook her head. No more secrets, Mom. What happened in Seattle? I looked at Collins, who nodded slightly. Tell them. They need to be prepared. Okay, I sighed, sinking into a chair. But first, you need to understand something about your father's death. It wasn't exactly an accident. The room grew very quiet. Through the window, I could see Jeremiah's car pulling away, and I wondered if he knew he'd just started a war he couldn't win. Because some secrets, once revealed, don't destroy you. They set you free. Your father was a good man, I began, watching my daughter's faces carefully, until he wasn't. Mom, Eva whispered, what are you saying? He started drinking, heavily. One night in Seattle, I gripped the armrests. He tried to kill me. I fought back. He fell down the stairs. Iris covered her mouth. But the police report said... Marcus was the responding officer, Collins interrupted. He knew your mother, knew what she'd been through. He helped make it look like an accident. To protect us, I added quickly. You girls were so young. I couldn't let you grow up with that story. Regina placed a hand on my shoulder. The statute of limitations has long passed. They can't prosecute you for self-defense now. But they can destroy my reputation, I said. And yours, Iris. Daughter of killer takes control of tech giant. Jeremiah knows exactly what he's doing. Let him try. Eva stood up, fierce and protective. Mom, you protected us then. Let us protect you now. The elevator dinged again. This time Pierce rushed in, waving papers. Emergency hearing's been moved up. Judge wants to see everyone in an hour. What? Regina grabbed the documents. They can't do that. They did. Jeremiah's lawyer claimed immediate psychological danger to Iris. Iris laughed bitterly. The only danger to my mental health was being married to him. Get dressed, Regina ordered. Everyone. Court clothes. We're doing this now. The next hour was a blur of activity. By the time we entered the courthouse, reporters lined the steps. Mrs. Baker, they shouted at Iris. Is it true you're having a breakdown? Ms. Parker, she corrected firmly, using her maiden name, and I've never been more clear-headed. Inside, Jeremiah waited with his lawyer. He smirked when he saw me. Ready to tell the truth, Summer? Are you? Colin stepped forward. Because I have some interesting documents about your firm's finances. Jeremiah's smirk faltered. The judge, an older woman named Martinez, called us to order. Jeremiah's lawyer spoke first, painting a picture of a vulnerable young wife led astray by her manipulative mother. And we have evidence, he announced, that Mrs. Parker has a history of violence. Objection, Pierce stood. Irrelevant and prejudicial. I'll allow it, Judge Martinez said, but tread carefully. Jeremiah's lawyer produced a sealed file. Seattle, 2008. A suspicious death ruled an accident. Your Honor, Regina interrupted, if opposing counsel is attempting to introduce sealed records from another jurisdiction. I have the unsealing order right here, the lawyer smiled. My heart stopped. But before he could continue, Iris stood up. Your Honor, may I speak? The judge nodded. My mother protected me from an abusive father when I was a child. Now she's protecting me from an abusive husband. The only difference is, this time, I'm old enough to stand up and say, enough. Mrs. Baker, Jeremiah's lawyer started. Ms. Parker, Iris corrected again, and I'm not finished. You want to talk about mental stability? Let's talk about how my husband threatened my mother yesterday. How he's trying to use a 15-year-old tragedy to maintain control. How he told me I was worthless without him. She pulled out her phone, playing the security footage from her mother's house. Jeremiah's threats echoed through the courtroom. Your Honor, Pierce stood. We have evidence of a clear pattern of emotional and financial abuse. Mr. Baker's emergency petition is nothing more than an attempt to maintain control over my client's newly acquired assets. Judge Martinez studied Jeremiah, who was turning redder by the second. Mr. Baker, do you have anything to say? This is all manipulation, he sputtered. They're trying to steal what's rightfully mine. Nothing was ever yours, Iris said quietly. That's what you never understood. The judge removed her glasses. I've heard enough. Petition denied. Furthermore, I'm issuing a temporary restraining order against Mr. Baker, 300 feet from both Ms. Parker and her mother. This isn't over, Jeremiah stood up, pointing at me. I'll make sure everyone knows what you did. Mr. Baker, Judge Martinez's voice cracked like a whip. One more word and you'll be held in contempt. Bailiff, please escort him out. Outside, the reporters waited, but this time Iris was ready. Yes, my mother killed my father, she announced clearly. She did it defending herself from a drunk man trying to murder her. She did it protecting her children, and now she's helping me protect myself. That's not manipulation, that's love. The cameras flashed as Jeremiah was led out a side door, his face twisted with rage. Well, Colin said quietly, I guess Seattle's not a secret anymore. No, I agreed, watching my daughter stand tall before the press. But neither is her strength. Eva squeezed my hand. You okay, Mom? I nodded, feeling lighter than I had in 15 years. Sometimes the truth hurts less than the secrets we keep to protect it. But as we left the courthouse, I couldn't shake the feeling that Jeremiah had one more card to play, and knowing him, it would be his cruelest move yet. We should call it Phoenix Rising, Eva suggested, sprawled across Iris's new office couch. 2 weeks had passed since the courthouse showdown, and we were brainstorming names for Iris's foundation. Too cliché, Regina said, not looking up from her laptop. We need something stronger. Iris paced by the floor-to-ceiling windows. What about the Worth Project? Simple, Direct. I like it, I nodded. But before I could say more, Collins burst into the room. Turn on the news. Now. Regina grabbed the remote. Jeremiah's face filled the screen, standing at a podium. My heart breaks for my wife, he was saying, his voice trembling perfectly. First, the trauma of losing her father so young, then being raised by the woman who killed him. The cycle of violence and manipulation. That snake, Eva threw a pillow at the TV. But what truly concerns me, Jeremiah continued, is the money. Where did Summer really get the funds to invest in TechCloud? The timing coincides perfectly with several unsolved bank robberies in Seattle. The room went silent. He's trying to trigger an SEC investigation, Collins said quietly. If they freeze the assets during an investigation. Everything stops, Regina finished. The foundation, the transfers, all of it. My phone rang. Marcus again. Summer, turn on the news. Already watching. What's he talking about? What bank robberies? There were 3 right before you invested with Collins. Your husband's death, then the robberies, then your sudden move. Some detective's been connecting dots that aren't there. But that's insane, I protested. I was working double shifts at the diner. Do you have proof? Records from 15 years ago? I felt the blood drain from my face. The diner burned down 12 years ago. All their records were lost. Exactly, Marcus sighed. Summer, they're reopening the investigation into your husband's death, too. I can't help this time. I hung up as Iris turned to me. Mom, tell me this isn't true. Of course it's not true. Eva jumped up. Jeremiah's making this up. The investment funds came from selling my car, taking out a loan, and every spare penny I had, I said firmly. Collins, you remember. He nodded slowly. I remember the cash. But did you keep any records? It was 15 years ago. I was trying to start over, not document everything. Regina was already on her phone. Pierce, we need to get ahead of this. Draft a statement. Wait, Iris interrupted. She walked to her desk and pressed the intercom. Sarah, call a press conference. 1 hour. Iris, no, I started, but she held up her hand. Mom, you protected me my whole life. Now it's my turn. She turned to Collins. You trust my mother, right? With my life, he said without hesitation. Then prove it. Stand with me at the press conference. Show them that TechCloud's CEO never doubted where the investment came from. The SEC won't care about that, Regina warned. They'll want documentation. Then we'll give them documentation, Eva said suddenly. Mom, remember Mrs. Rodriguez? From the diner? She used to do the books before the fire. She might remember. She moved to Florida years ago, I said. So we'll find her. Social media exists for a reason. My phone buzzed with a text from Jeremiah. Ready to back down yet? Collins read it over my shoulder and smiled grimly. He's getting desperate, making wild accusations instead of calculated moves. Because he knows he's losing control, Iris said. She straightened her jacket and headed for the door. Coming to the press conference? Iris, I called after her. What are you going to say? She turned back, and for a moment I saw such strength in her eyes it took my breath away. I'm going to tell them that my mother taught me the most valuable lesson. Sometimes the people who try to destroy you are the ones most afraid of your power. Eva linked her arm through mine. Found her. Mrs. Rodriguez is in Tampa, still running a diner. I'll have my jet ready in an hour, Collins offered. First the press conference, Regina said. Then Tampa. As we headed down to face the media circus, I felt strangely calm. Jeremiah thought he could bury us in lies and accusations. But he forgot one thing. The truth doesn't need perfect documentation to be true. Mom? Iris squeezed my hand as the elevator descended. Whatever happens, I want you to know something. Everything I am, everything I'm becoming, it's because you showed me how to rise from the ashes. Speaking of rising, Eva grinned, I still vote for Phoenix Rising. We all laughed, and for a moment, the weight of Jeremiah's accusations lifted. He could throw all the mud he wanted. Some things are simply unshakable, like the truth, like family, like love. But as the elevator doors opened to a sea of flashing cameras, I saw him standing there, smirking. And I knew this battle was far from over. The Tampa diner looked exactly like the one I used to work in. right down to the neon open sign flickering in the window. Mrs. Rodriguez hadn't changed either. Same kind eyes, same no-nonsense expression. Summer? She squinted through her reading glasses. My God, is that really you? Hi, Rosa, I smiled, sliding into a booth. I need your help. She listened as I explained everything. Iris, Jeremiah, the accusations. When I finished, she stood up without a word and disappeared into the back room. Mom, Eva whispered. What if she doesn't? Here. Mrs. Rodriguez returned with a battered shoebox. I kept everything when the diner burned down. Call it a habit from growing up under a dictatorship. Always keep papers that prove your truth. Inside were payroll records, bank deposit slips, even my original work schedule showing the double shifts. My phone buzzed. Regina. SEC agents are here. Where are you? Found it, I texted back, snapping photos of the documents. Sending proof now. Mrs. Rodriguez patted my hand. I remember those days, Summer. How hard you worked. No one who knew you then would believe these lies. The diner's TV suddenly caught our attention. Breaking news banner. Tech Cloud CEO Collins steps down amid investigation. What? Eva grabbed her phone. That wasn't part of the plan, Collins answered on the first ring. Had to do it, Summer. They were going to suspend trading of our stock. This way the company's protected while we fight. Fight what? I demanded. Jeremiah's lawyer just submitted surveillance footage from Seattle, the night before the robberies. Shows you meeting with known criminals. My blood ran cold. That's impossible. Mom? Eva's voice shook. What's he talking about? The support group, I whispered. For domestic abuse survivors. Some of them had records. We met in that coffee shop every week. Mrs. Rodriguez was already pulling out her phone. I was there too, remember? I drove you to those meetings. I'll testify. But the hits kept coming. Regina called next. Jeremiah's pushing for an emergency shareholders meeting, trying to force Iris out. He can't do that, Eva protested. She owns the shares. He's claiming they're proceeds of criminal activity, if he can prove that. My phone lit up with another call. Iris this time. Mom, come back now, please. He's here at the office with the FBI. We raced to the airport, Collins's private jet waiting. During the flight, the news kept getting worse. TechCloud's stock was plummeting. Jeremiah had somehow gotten Marcus to change his story, claiming he'd helped cover up more than just my husband's death. This doesn't make sense, Eva said, scrolling through news articles. How is Jeremiah doing all this? Because he's not working alone, Collins replied grimly. Someone with serious power is helping him. Someone who doesn't want Iris to have control of TechCloud. The pieces suddenly clicked. The merger, I gasped. The one you blocked last month. Who was trying to buy the company? Collins's face darkened. Global Tech Partners, run by Jeremiah's father, Eva finished. Oh my God. We landed to chaos. Reporters swarmed the airport, shouting questions. Police cars surrounded TechCloud's building. And there, on the steps, stood Jeremiah with his father, a silver-haired man in an expensive suit who radiated power. Mrs. Parker, an FBI agent approached as we got out of the car. We need you to come with us. No. Iris's voice rang out across the plaza. She strode toward us, Regina at her side. You want to question my mother? Do it here, in public. Let everyone see what's really happening. Iris, Jeremiah called out, don't make this worse. Just sign the shares over and all this goes away. Like hell it does, Eva snapped. Mrs. Rodriguez stepped forward, her shoebox clutched tight. I have proof of Summer's income. Every penny she invested came from honest work. And I have proof of what really happened in Seattle, a new voice called out. We turned to see Marcus pushing through the crowd, holding a file. The real file, not the doctored one you paid me to create. Jeremiah's father moved forward, menacing. Think carefully about what you're doing, officer. Oh, I have, Marcus replied. 15 years of thinking about it. And I'm done being afraid of men like you. The FBI agent took the file, reading quickly. His expression changed. Sir, he said into his radio, we need to redirect this investigation. No! Jeremiah lunged forward, but security held him back. You can't do this. I had it all planned. The evidence, the timing, the confession? Eva held up her phone, recording. Thanks for that, by the way. The plaza erupted in chaos. Reporters surged forward as Jeremiah's father was led to a police car, his son shouting accusations behind him. But through it all, Iris stood tall, her hand finding mine. "Ready to finish this?" she asked. I squeezed her hand, feeling stronger than ever. Together. Because sometimes karma needs a little help, and sometimes justice wears a pantsuit and carries a shoebox full of truth. The Worth Foundation proudly announces its first grant recipients, Iris read from the podium, her voice strong and clear. The auditorium was packed with journalists, business leaders, and most importantly, women ready to rebuild their lives. I sat in the front row between Eva and Mrs. Rodriguez, who'd moved back to help run the foundation. Behind us, Collins and Regina exchanged proud smiles. Each of these 10 women has a story, Iris continued, of being told they weren't enough, of being controlled, diminished, erased. Today, they begin writing new stories. My phone buzzed with a news alert. Former tech CEO pleads guilty in corporate conspiracy case. Jeremiah's father's face filled the screen, followed by a smaller photo of Jeremiah being led into court. Ava peeked at my phone and whispered, "Karma's got amazing timing." "Our first recipient," Iris announced, "is opening a chain of diners that will employ and train survivors of domestic violence." The idea came from my mother's story, how a simple diner job became the foundation of a new life. Mrs. Rodriguez squeezed my hand as the young woman walked onto stage, beaming. "Our second recipient is launching a financial literacy program for women leaving abusive relationships, because knowledge isn't just power, it's freedom." One by one, the women took the stage, each story different, each dream unique, but all sharing that same fire I'd seen grow in Iris's eyes. And finally, Iris smiled, "I'd like to announce that TechCloud will be matching every grant, dollar for dollar. Because when women support women, mountains move." The applause was deafening. As people began mingling afterward, Collins approached with a tablet. "Stock's up 40% since the announcement," he grinned. "Turns out ethical leadership is good for business. Who knew?" "Speaking of business," Regina joined us, "the divorce is final. Jeremiah didn't contest it. Smart move, considering he's facing his own legal troubles." "Mom!" Eva called from across the room. "Come meet Sarah! She's opening the diners!" The young woman had my old determination in her eyes. "Mrs. Rodriguez is helping me design the training program," she said. "We're calling it the Phoenix Project." "Finally," Ava laughed. "My name suggestion wins." "Actually," Iris appeared beside us, "that was my suggestion. I just let you think it was yours." "Sneaky," Eva hugged her sister. "You're learning." A reporter approached, notebook ready. "Ms. Parker, how does it feel knowing your mother's story inspired all this?" Iris looked at me, her eyes shining. "My mother taught me that true strength isn't in hiding our scars, but in helping others heal theirs. Everything here today? It's just the beginning." The reporter turned to me. "And you, Mrs. Parker? How does it feel seeing your daughter turn personal tragedy into community triumph?" Before I could answer, Marcus walked in, now wearing his detective's badge again. "Sorry to interrupt, but I thought you'd want to see this." He handed me an envelope. Inside was a letter from the Seattle Police Department, officially closing my husband's case. Self-defense, justified. No further investigation needed. 15 years, I whispered. "Some truths take time," Marcus said, "but they always surface." "Mom," Iris touched my arm. "You okay?" I looked around the room, at Ava chatting with grant recipients, at Mrs. Rodriguez sharing diner management tips, at Collins and Regina discussing expansion plans, at my daughter standing tall and proud, no longer anyone's victim. "I'm better than okay," I smiled. "I'm free. We all are." "Good," Iris grinned, "because we have work to do. The foundation's getting applications from all over the country." "The world, actually," Regina corrected, showing us her tablet. "We've gone viral. Women everywhere want to be part of this." "Then we better get started," I said. As we gathered for a group photo, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, pure, uncomplicated joy. Jeremiah had tried to shame us with the past, but instead he'd helped us build a future. Every accusation, every threat had only made our foundation stronger. "Ready?" the photographer called. "Wait," Eva ran over. "Family should be together." She pulled me and Iris close, Mrs. Rodriguez joining us. Collins and Regina squeezed in too, because family isn't always about blood. "Perfect," the photographer said. "Everyone say, Phoenix." We laughed, and in that moment, I knew we'd done more than just survive. We'd shown every woman watching that your worst day doesn't have to define you. That sometimes the people who try to break you end up giving you the pieces to build something beautiful. The camera flashed, capturing not just smiles, but triumph. Because revenge isn't always about destroying your enemies. Sometimes it's about building something so magnificent that they become irrelevant. And that's the sweetest victory of all.